In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Yeah. This is Blood Politics. The only podcast where we don't talk about politics. We be about politics. And our mission statement is to empower, educate, and encourage everyone to speak out against fascism, speak out against injustice, and fight for freedom and equality for everyone. This is Blood Politics. And we ain't stopping till they put us in the grave. We ain't gonna be quiet. And we ain't gonna be scared. And we ain't gonna go along with the crowd. This is Blood Politics. And it ain't about left or right. It ain't about Dem or Republican. It's about right and wrong. It's about us versus them. This is Blood Politics.
What's up, gang? What's happening? What do you say we hop
do?
right into it? What do you say? Let everybody start filtering in. Everybody just hit that like button on the way in, if you will. I appreciate you for joining me today. Welcome. It's Friday, the 15th of May, 2026. Another week in the books, so to speak. We'll be going through kind of in a laid-back manner in this Friday, kind of what the nonsense, the craziness, the stories. Obviously, Donald Trump returning home from China. We're going to have to figure out what's been going on and what will go on, obviously, in the war with Iran. It seems like Trump, in a few different aspects, especially in a recent interview with Sean Hannity, is kind of setting the table for another taco Trump withdrawal from Iran moment. A lot of people have been speculating that he's been getting bored, getting sick and tired of the stalemate that's been going on for much longer than he said it was supposed to go on. So we'll be going in and diving into all of that. Obviously, Xi and China's masterclass of trolling and grandstanding and gamesmanship. As in my opinions, let's just say, I think, between like the YMCA song being played, again, the little children being rolled out for Donald Trump, again, all of the benefits seemingly going to the Chinese side, and nothing actually that Donald Trump is returning home with as far as signed deals, signed promises, actual statements of intent by any stretch of the imagination. So we'll be talking about that. A couple high drama moments as well. This thing almost kicked off into like some international circus. We almost had an international situation going on between the U.S. media, the Chinese Secret Service, the Chinese security, and the U.S. Secret Service. So there was a couple scuffles that we'll get into, and we'll take a look at, see what happened in that one as well. We got some Trump statements on Air Force One on the way back from China that everybody's talking about. So we'll be kind of, going back to our roots and diving into a little bit of that. We got a double dose today, and I do apologize for this. He's just been on one lately as far as doing the old for Donald Trump. So double dose of Benny Johnson, shamelessly filleting Donald Trump, and again, trying to turn this useless trip to China into some world-changing victory that just doesn't exist. Also, Xi calling us allegedly a nation in decline, and then Donald Trump has to take to his Truth Social for damage control, also signaling a possible, quote, clashes between the United States and China as it pertains to the Taiwan issue, something that, again, was not heavily brought up or even brought up at all in some of the statements by the White House, something that you would think would be kind of high on the priority list as it was seemingly for China. We'll be talking about Mike Tiny Johnson now trying this new war tactic. Don't worry, the first phase of the war is over. We don't need congressional approval. I think Congress should stay out of this because we're in this new phase. Remember, we talked about how this was going to happen. I think it was Dolphin Iran on Twitter that says, the United States is going to try this new war rhetoric, this new war ploy to try to get away from having to go to Congress and seek, approval for military use. So we'll be discussing that as well. There's a clip here from the Rest is Politics podcast discussing the China trip, which I wanted to get into. The death toll, unfortunately, has risen from Russia's deadly attacks in Ukraine over the last 48 hours. Fortunately, Ukraine has struck back. We'll be taking a look at that as well. And then some good footage coming out from the first POWs being exchanged in the 1,000 for 1,000 trade, in which the ceasefire on the Patriots Day Parade, the Victory Day Parade, in Russia was part of. So we'll be taking a look at that. And then obviously this Thucydides trap that everybody's talking about that she laid out. We're going to have to be discussing that as well. So lots to talk about, lots to try to cram in here. I really do appreciate you for taking the time out of your day and joining me. My name's Brian. This is Blunt Politics. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Before we get started, a few housekeeping notes. If you're in the financial position to give a buck or two to the independent media channels that you guys love to support, there is a few easy ways in which to contribute. Venmo up here in the corner. All we ask for, like I said, a buck or two. Anything above and beyond that is totally up to you, depending on your financial situation. You can sign up for a YouTube membership, which really goes to help the channel. You can sign up for that for less than a gallon of gas, and you get an entire month as a member here, or you could go to patreon.com/BostonBrian. 3 great tiers on there. And again, depending on which one fits your financial capabilities, get you access into the Zoom meetups that we have every single month, discounts to the merch shop, all of the good things that we need to talk about. So housekeeping notes out of the way. I appreciate you guys. What do you say we dive into a little bit of the nonsense, a little bit of the craziness as always? Like I said, hit that like button. First thing we're going to dive in today is a little fuck around and find out story. Okay. I don't know how familiar you guys are with this story. If you're not familiar with this asshole, with this Chud the Builder, then God bless you. Don't worry about it, really. Not something that really necessarily concerns you that you have to go like deep diving into, but just as a little, fuck around and find out moment, something that you knew was coming. This asshole here is, a streamer, a kick streamer, kind of made famous by going around and just calling black people the N-word. He just kind of rolls up on them with mace and in a weapon, and basically dares them to react, dares them to engage with him, so he could either first spray them in the face with the mace, and if they get physical, if they get violent with him, he seems like he has the justification to then go ahead and use the firearm that he carries around. But he's a real piece of shit, a real scumbag, and eventually it led to exactly what we thought was going to happen. He has now been charged with, I believe it was first-degree murder, if I'm not mistaken. Initial bond set at $1.25 million. He was charged with attempted murder. Let me see here. It says a little bit more if I could see. Charged with attempted criminal homicide after shooting a black veteran. Geez, gets worse for him. And himself during an altercation outside the Clarksville courthouse. And again, it was even on film. I think the second half of the altercation was caught on film, but there was a scuffle. He pulled out his firearm, shot this, this black veteran and himself in the same at the same time in the same process. And now he's been charged with, again, like it says here, charged with attempted criminal homicide. And I just figured we'd get a little joy out of listening to the reading of how much his bond is going to be set at here at over $1 million. Not only that, but the look on his face when he hears the price is also something that I relish upon and will take in as much as I can possibly take it in. So here it is. Here's Chud the Builder getting read the fact that he's now got an initial bond set at $1.25 million. Again, fuck around and find out. Didn't take very long. Actually, this escalated a little more rapidly than I thought it was. Like, I thought he would actually kind of take the notoriety and maybe lay back a little bit and kind of let some of the films and videos that he's got out there have some play. But no, he went out there again, decided to act a fool, and now he's going to pay the price for it. So check this out.
Bond at $1.25 million.
The long close. That's what gets me, guys. That's what really, really gets me. And I know maybe I'm got some like sadistic streak in me. I don't give a fuck, really, tell you the truth. But the fact that pain, the fact that anguish inside of him when he hears that $1.25 million, and whether or not that's just like well beyond his means, and knows that he's not going to be able to put that up, or it knows it's going to have some like huge financial ramifications for him in the future, is another question. But that long blink that he has there, where he's like, "Fuck," just the other day I was counting some money. I was sitting in my bed with all my boyfriends, talking about how we could go out and call black people the N-word. How many weapons we have to take with us, what type of mace we could use. Now you're in a Montgomery County jail courtroom jacket, suit, uniform, whatever the hell you want to call it, sitting there listening to how your bond is now being set at $1.25 million.
Based upon the fact of how many people were in the courtyard, were here at the courthouse, and the seriousness of all these felonies, and his bond status.
Yeah, so basically the danger that you pose to the public, the danger you pose to society is, again, probably worth at least $1 million, $1.2 million in that regard, because you're just a moron and will decide to pull out your firearm, even though it's a situation that you initiated, right? It's a situation that you want to take place, and then you yourself are going to pull out the firearm in a crowded spot and just decide to start shooting people. Like, what an absolute fucking moron. But like I said, good riddance to this piece of shit. Like I said, on one hand, I thought he would kind of let it ride a little bit. And on the other hand, I knew that this was going to escalate quickly. So it was kind of a double-edged sword on that one, but somebody was going to get him. It was just a matter of time before he ran into the wrong motherfucker, right? I mean, I don't know if this guy just like has been picking and choosing his areas and streets that he goes down wisely up until now. But the fact that, maybe again, it's just him brandishing his firearm has kind of quelled the people in their reactions to a certain extent. But I'm telling you, it's only a matter of time before he runs into the wrong one that's not going to give a shit and kind of, has they're packing themselves as well. So, good to see him fucking around and finding out in that regard, too. A little moment of fucking around and finding out, not as bad, but another thing that people were bringing up as far as the U.S. trip to China was this one. Was hold on. Come on. Get on the screen. Why? I don't understand. At some points, it doesn't let me change over. I'm gonna let it sit for a second. I'm gonna let it sit. I'm gonna let it hang. It's throwing a little temper tantrum. There we go. I know if you just give it some time, if you got patience, which I have absolutely none of, typically it'll work out for you. But this is another instance that people were discussing again in this trip to China. And this was Brett Baer talking about the cameras that were installed there in Beijing, how many of them are looking at him, and basically the fact that his driver that was parked illegally got a $40 ticket in about 2 minutes. A lot of people pulling out the aha moment. But I don't know if you can read on these cameras or if Brett Baer is going to tell you, but I don't know if it says Palantir or Peter Thiel on them now, but that's exactly what those assholes are trying to change this country into as well. So as much as Brett Baer wants to talk about Beijing and all that, he's really not talking about the other aspects of, maybe public transportation, cleanliness, that other aspects. But, he is talking about the $40 ticket that his driver got, but a lot of people laughing at him for this. So I figured would breeze through this and give him a big old FU.
Big Brother is watching. There are literally cameras everywhere in Beijing. We are outside the Haidian station, and I can count at least 20 on this corner.
It's like they're finding out in real time that like China has gone from like an extremely primitive society into this like extremely technologically advanced society in a very short period of time, right? And again, they're all like amazed at this. Like I was saying the other day at the show, like you understand that these people are going to go over and they thought they were going to see one thing, and then what they actually saw in reality was going to blow their goddamn minds in a lot of different ways. A lot of different ways. They're going to be like, well, why don't we have that? Why can't we do that shit with public transportation and railways and high-speed rail in our country and that type of, I don't know. It's just, it's just curious to me how they just rapidly go there. There was another aspect of this where Brett Baer went to it was like a convenience store type of thing, and he was served by a robot, and you see him and he's ordering with a microphone and shit. Like they're just blown away, but not also recognizing the fact that, not many people are working at that convenience store, like how those are going to translate to jobs. Again, if in fact we do try to partner up, like Donald Trump's been talking about, with $1 trillion in factories, Chinese factories being built in the United States, you think it's going to be like an abundance of American workers that are going to get the jobs, or is it more likely to be, again, the robots associated with a lot of Brett Baer's, coverage that he had out there? So again, here he goes on to talk about his driver getting a $40 U.S. parking ticket in 2 minutes because the camera spotted him.
In fact, in Beijing, they've added 1,500 cameras just this year alone. They see everything. There's nobody jaywalking here because they could get a ticket right away. In fact, our driver parked illegally for 2 minutes, and he got a message on his phone that he got a ticket for about $40 US because they saw it on the camera. Now, there are real questions what the CCP's goal is about citizen tracking and social scoring. They say it's to make everybody feel safe. These cameras are watching every minute. They're everywhere. And while they're watching us here in China, we hope you continue to watch. Special report from Beijing.
So again, here's Brett Baer finally recognizing exactly what, again, Palantir, Peter Thiel, and the rest of these psychopathic defense contractors want to turn this country into, as far as being able to watch every move, know exactly what you're posting, what you're searching, who you're talking to, what you're saying, what your interests are, where you frequent, what places you eat at, all of those things. It's not like, Brett Baer decided to throw a little bit of that information into his coverage whatsoever. But, there was a few moments of high drama. I know that wasn't really high drama, but there were a few actual moments of like, is this going to kick off into like some fucking fisticuffs here between the Chinese security allegedly some Secret Service agents in the United States press corps, because there was multiple instances that I've seen people talk about, and this is just a couple clips from both of the things that I've seen. And there was even an alleged, and I don't know if this is one of the two suspected instances in which the United States Secret Service was allegedly involved. From what I could gather, it was somebody didn't have the clearance. There had already been a Secret Service or multiple Secret Service agents, authorized to go into this temple, into this site with weapons, with a firearm. And then all of a sudden, one of the Chinese security said that another one of the Secret Service agents that was escorting the press wasn't allowed to move forward, and there was some big standoff. Again, I'm not sure specifically if it's the one that we're going to be taking a look at here or another one, but there were two seemingly instances in which you can hear, and then there was this one as well, where one of them in the back is heard saying, "Hey, get the fuck out of the way," or something along those lines, and there's like a lot of pushing and shoving taking place. So again, it seems like just everything falls to pieces when it pertains to this administration. Like nothing goes smoothly, no matter how hard they try, right? They want to make it seem like this was like some world-changing event as far as a trip. Meanwhile, like even me in my novice, my novice state as a political commentator, right? Like I understand that typically on a state visit like this, it will be preceded by weeks, if not months, of visits by different dignitaries, different people and representatives in your administration. You will have multiple talks. You will have agreements and things to sign. So when the U.S. president and the Chinese president actually do get together, they can have that ceremonial, signing of this agreement or these proposals or these promises or this joint connection, whatever it may be. Right. This just seemed to be like, just a vacation at this place. You know what I mean? Like how many people in the United States, how many businessmen in the United States can Donald Trump take to China so that they can enrich themselves, right? So they can, connect with Chinese companies, much like, Elon Musk and his factories that he's got in China. It doesn't seem like it has any benefit whatsoever for the United States. We've heard these stupid promises of soybeans and 200 Boeing planes, which is less than half of what was originally reported. I think it was supposed to have originally been about 500 or so planes. But again, how the fuck that helps the American people, how that's helping you right now at the gas pump while you're paying for groceries, right? Everything right now costs more. Everything, whether you're booking a flight, whether you're checking your bags, whether you're paying for gas, whether you're buying groceries, whether you're buying sneakers, right? Whether you're sending kids to school, whether you're sending kids to camp, whether you're sending kids to play in sporting events, whatever it may be, whether you're going to sporting events, right? Whether you're trying to camp out, everything right now costs fucking more. Right. So how is the 200 deal plane buying from Boeing, a benefit to the United States? And we've talked at length last show about how the Chinese have reneged time and time again on different agricultural and farming deals. Right. We talked about the 2020 deal in which they barely scraped by about 50% of what they had promised to buy as far as I believe it was soybeans, beef, and a few other different items as well. But what the fuck are we doing here? Just taking Xi's word for it? You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, he promises not to send any more weapons or any engines that relate to drones over to Iran. He promises not to, and again, he didn't even bring this up, Donald Trump, but you'd think you would bring up the intelligence assessment sharing that had given Iran the ability to get through the United States air defenses, to penetrate the Iron Dome and to attack not only U.S. bases, but also related, involving ultimately having the death of U.S. service members take place because of that. Sorry, I don't know where my mind just went on that one. I apologize, but there was so many things that I was trying to turn that sentence into, and not one of them came out correctly. But, you can tell that, he's not bringing this up for a reason. The same thing that he dodged the Taiwan question as well. He was asked multiple times, hey, did you discuss Taiwan? Did you bring up Taiwan? No answer from Donald Trump, but he answered the first question. But here's just a couple of these moments here from the potential kickoff that was likely to happen, it looked like, between the Secret Service, potentially, allegedly, the Chinese security, and the U.S. press corps. And we'll just flip through this. Again, this is kind of a lengthier video describing what would happen. I think this is just them having their cameras rolling the entire time. But this is one of the instances. It says here, high drama, U.S. media clashes with Chinese security officials as Trump and Xi Jinping take a walk. So this is basically them being forced to take video from quite a distance here while being kind of held captive in this room. Like, watch this. And you'll hear the conversation go on in the background. There's one lady that's kind of in charge, like, why the hell are we being held here?
I'm just leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm just watching. No, that's we just need to make sure that they go.
Guys, I'm gonna flag this one more time. You have more cameras inside than what we agreed to. There's more in your.
You know, you can hear discrepancies about how many cameras are allowed inside or outside. And then again, you can see the two Chinese security officials. I think there's actually multiple within the crew here, but not allowing this crew who are, you know, are trying to tell them we're part of the president's motorcade, yada, yada, yada. But apparently there's either too many people out there, they're not allowed in, they haven't been, you know, I don't know, briefed, or they haven't been flagged yet, or whatever the hell. But this goes on for quite some time. Like I said, this is about a 10-minute, 11-minute, 12-minute video here. But I'll skip forward. We'll skip through it.
Hold the light.
Plus your special press.
Oh, thank you, Shifty Lincoln. Appreciate that. Appreciate that, my friend. Can you imagine being Elon Musk going to China thinking it's a rave party after doing a line of ketamine off the rim of the toilet bowl on Air Force One? He looked like he was on one, right, dude? I'm telling you, we played that on the show yesterday. Like, he was looking at the ceiling, like the ceiling was fucking talking to him at a few points. You know what I mean? The way he was taking the selfies, and he was like so amazed. You'd think like the world's richest man, who's supposed to be responsible for some of the greatest technology the world's ever seen, wouldn't be as, like, I don't know, smitten by going to a place where he's got factories and has been before, type of thing. But again, ketamine does weird things. Acid does weird things. Mushroom does weird things to speak to people. And especially if you combine those things, you never know what you're going to get. You know what I mean? It's like Forrest Gump, and life is like a box of chocolates at that point. You know what I mean? You might get just caught at a dinner with your eyes rolling back in your head like you're at you're at Woodstock. But Shifty, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for that $10 contribution. W Shifty in the chat there. But again, this is just, like I said, it seems like they're just trying to keep their cameras rolling. At one point, they know this is kind of turning into a thing, so they want to make sure to record it.
No, press official.
So our officials are up there too, and that's what you're including in our numbers.
So they're saying our officials are up there too, so you're including that in numbers. So basically, they're only allotted so many people or so many cameras or so many representatives. You know, it's kind of hard to read between the lines as to what the actual security arrangements were, obviously in the different sites and the different places that they were at. But it seems like, you know, there was a certain allotment, there was a certain amount of people that were allowed to be in and around Xi maybe, and they kind of felt like there was too many at that point. So they were kind of saying, you know, you got to wait in this room, and the U.S. press was not fucking having it at some point. All right, ready? We'll skip ahead. We'll go ahead further. And then they do this, and then they do this. Let's go forward where they start arguing here. Ready? So you can hear the discussion between the Chinese security officials. You got somebody on the phone here in the front, and it looks like, I think this woman right here was kind of leading, I don't know if you want to call it a negotiation or the standoff or whatever the hell you want to call it, but she's kind of like, listen, we're with the president's motorcade. We've been given the security access. We get all the passes. We've been with them all day. Like, I don't know what's been going on, but they start getting a little testy here.
你让他们接着车别走，等着他们。你现在给他说。
So now the woman in front's getting frustrated.
到时候路线会有，直接让他们。
Yeah, we put the president. It's not a separate movement.
At one point, you can hear one of the women say, "You know what? We're missing history take place out there right now because you guys are holding us in this room. Like, we're unable to do our jobs. We cannot capture the moment that's taking place between the two presidents out there because you're locked in this room." And they continue to be held there.
But we're actually going with the president. He's following the president outline. We're in the package with him.
So you can hear her state, "We're actually going with the president. We're with the president in his motorcade." So there shouldn't be any discrepancies here, but still they're not being allowed out. I find it comical because everything, like I said, turns to shit with this administration. Nothing goes smoothly, right? This is supposed to be if you listen to Benny Johnson, as we will in a couple of videos coming up, this was like a world-changing, probably the most historic meeting ever had between two, heads of state. And it's like, what's the outcome? What is the benefit? What fucking happened? Like I said, it just seemed like a big, pomp and circumstance state trip with no outcome whatsoever. Some, half-assed, mealy-mouthed promises that they've been promised before that they don't fucking live up to whatsoever, right? Nothing on Taiwan, no pressure put upon them for their assistance that they'd be giving Iran in the Iran war. Again, they've been allowed, I wrote a couple things down. So they're helping U.S. enemies. They're allowed now, or at least they're in talks about building factories in the U.S. There's been talks about relieving some of the tariffs placed upon China. They're allowed now to talk about and to still continue getting oil from Iran, as Donald Trump said in one of his statements, as you'll hear. So it's like, what was the benefit for the U.S.? Meanwhile, it seems like a lot was afforded to, at least in promises to the Chinese people, to Xi, by the United States on the other side. So it seems to be a lopsided kind of trip. But again, Benny Johnson will try to get you to believe that it was the most historic outcome ever to take place in the history of fucking mankind somehow. And again, the ass kissing is on another fucking level at this point, which I told you was going to happen. Like I told you, the deeper we got into this and the more obvious it got that the MAGA cult was collapsing, and that, the favorability for this asshole was really on a sharp downturn, that it was going to be the sycophants and the propagandists that stick with him, and they're going to have to be speaking the loudest and talking the most bullshit, right? They were going to be the most unbelievable people. Well, that's Benny Johnson now, since he's turned the corner. That's him. But this goes on here. This little charade isn't done yet either.
So it is down there where they're walking.
The lady in front's about to have a conniption. She's about to have a fucking stroke. She's like, get me out of this fucking room.
Our president is not going to leave until they're involved.
So the guy says, our president is not going to leave until they're with them, until they're in the motorcade. So it's like, you have to let us out of this room at some point.
We'll wait you outside the gate.
Our motorcade is the president's. We only meet with the president.
So again, like I said, this goes on for several minutes, and then at the end of it, the U.S. press just kind of gets fed up, and they just eventually, I think, just storm past the security, if I'm not mistaken. Either that, they're eventually just let out of the room. But check this out.
Be gentle, but we are going. Don't run over
So they just
anybody.
kind of
Do not do what they did to us.
So at some point, they're like, we're going. We got to go. We're going to go. Go, go, go. Like it was a fucking military objective. And they just kind of, like I said, either were let out or in fact, they just kind of bull rushed. But there was another one of these where it was like some skirmishes going on, people swearing at each other. I don't know if it was like press corps to press corps in this one or if there was Chinese security involved as well. But this is another one where some swears were put out there and some shouting was heard, as it says here. Shouting match erupts between U.S. journalists and Chinese guards. So let's see what this one is again. Like this close to an international event. It's just like a free-for-all. Great camera work, by the way. Superb camera work. I mean, if you're not dizzy by the time there's actually some shots actually to come out of this, I'm not sure what's going to take place. Let me see. I know at one point they actually gather before the doors. Let me see here. Yeah, they gather before the doors here. Right. So this is kind of as they're waiting to be let into, I believe, where Trump was sitting at the big, long, the big, long committee table, the big, long executive table across from Xi, giving him praise. I think this is just prior to that moment. You can see kind of how nervous all the guards are. Like a lot of these people look like they were fucking their lives were on the line as far as how this event went. They kind of needed it to go off without a hitch, unless they were going to go off with a hitch, if you know what I mean. So you can hear somebody in the background say, White House staff only, White House staff only. And then eventually somebody in the background opens the curtains, and there's just a mass bull rush of all of the journalists getting past either the Chinese guards, Chinese security, whatever it may be. And then you can see kind of the chaos that ensues. So they're worried to death. They're scared to death about like disrupting whatever's happening beyond the curtains there. They don't want Xi to poke his head through those curtains and be like, hey, can you quiet it down? Somebody's going to fucking pay that price if that happens. So they're all quieting everybody down. Look at how scared they are. They're all like, yeah.
Mark, color temperature.
Yeah.
Right. So then eventually they decide to open the curtain and let people in. And here's the mad dash into the room.
Only White House only. White House only.
Look at it. Sounds like there's fucking cars crashing, plates crashing. Sounds like a catastrophe. Back up. So again, they're all fighting to get in there to get the best vantage point. And then when Donald Trump's walking out at the end of this, you can hear also some pushing and shoving going on, apparently. You can hear somebody in the background tell somebody else to fuck off, apparently. Check this out. Let's see if I can get this moment right. Listen in the background.
Nope. Get the fuck out of here. No.
Get the fuck out of here, somebody says. So, like I said, I don't know if that was between the Chinese security and the U.S. press or, two people in the press corps themselves kind of fighting over a position. But, obviously it was a shit show on both sides of this, whether it was in front of the cameras or behind the cameras. It didn't go as smoothly as they'd like you to believe. But speaking of not going very smoothly, a lot of people bringing up a lot of points talked about in this. So, like I said, we're going to have to go back to our roots, and I apologize for the neck that I'm showing you here. My apologies if you just ate or if you were about to eat. But again, a lot of kind of clips coming out of this one that Donald Trump was talking about, talking out of his ass. Kind of some very, very, enlightening things. Not really, no. But here he is on his gaggle back on Air Force One. And again, rather than go through all of the separate clips, I figured we'd just play the first couple minutes of this. You should get the gist of the nonsense and the bullshit that he's spewing. I think it's basically up until he calls somebody a fake reporter, and then we can go on to the next thing. But like I said, a lot of people talking about a few moments in this on his way back. As you can see, Sean Hannity's fat square head in the background. But again, just a couple minutes, bear with me, and we'll see if we can call out some of the nonsense here.
Hello, everybody. How are you? So we had a great stay. It was an amazing period of time. President Xi's an incredible guy. Got along, made a lot of great trade deals, including
a lot of good trade deals. He's a great guy. The way he gives, Iran intelligence and how to strike U.S. bases and get around, U.S. Air defenses, it's beautiful. The fact that he's been responsible for not only sending them parts for weapons that they use against us, but also the intelligence is great. I didn't bring that up with him. We didn't bring that up at all, nor the Taiwan issue whatsoever, even though, China stated it was the main issue, the main point that they wanted to get across. The United States president feels it's not necessary for him now. And again, Donald Trump even now talking about reneging on weapons deals to Taiwan after a meeting with the president of China. Again, after the policies that we've had in this place, in this country for quite some time at basically, not listening to China at whether or not we're going to help, and assist Taiwan with, either weaponry or, aid or whatever it may be. But Donald Trump, again, just after the meeting with Xi Jinping, is now coming out and saying, no, he's going to change his mind. He doesn't have to, abide to, laws and policies that were put in the 80s type of thing.
Over 200 planes from Boeing with a promise of 750 planes, which would be by far the largest order ever if they do.
Nobody's seen that whatsoever. Nobody, even his team hasn't reported the 750, right? At first, before they went, the promise was supposed to be about 500. Now the promise when it was actually talked about and brought up was about 200, if that. So nowhere else on the fucking planet has anybody been saying that I have seen, that I could tell, besides Donald Trump here, trying to make it seem like they got more out of us. And again, this isn't a deal signed. This isn't something that he went over with the proposal. He got a signature from Xi. He got a signature, his signature's on it, and it's a deal that they, were promised and they have to stick to. right? Not that they would anyway, even if they did put pen to paper, even if they did sign their name, much like we've seen in the past. But that's not what took place, right? And like I said, even I know, as stupid as I am, in this whole thing, as much as I'm still learning all of the rules, regulations, processes, the whole thing, like I still know that when you do these trips, you're supposed to have something in the works. You're supposed to have people on your team going over there, talking to different partners and players, right? Working out different aspects, working out different things that you can agree upon, getting a bill signed, not a bill, but getting something signed between the two countries, basically, that you can say, okay, these are the sticking points. These are the things that we have to agree to. These are the things that we want to accomplish by this time frame. These are the things that we're going to say, okay, we are going to assist them with weaponry or we're not. Like, these are the things that typically are supposed to happen before these state trips, and it's just not anything that we saw happen here. There's no, specific agreed upon circumstance that we can come out of this waving around and showing anybody. It's a bunch of meaningless jargon that came from a pomp and circumstance state visit where the fucking red carpet was rolled out because she knew that everybody on the world was looking at him as well. And he used it, again, like I said, his fucking masterclass of trolling and gamesmanship in this, as far as I could see, was pretty well done, right? To make it look like he was the strong man, he was the world leader between the two people here, right? Like, he had the power, he had the upper hand, he had the fucking president of the United States eaten out of the palm of his hand, calling him a great leader, calling him, one of the most consequential leaders on the planet. People don't like him to say that, but he tells the truth, so he has to say it. Like, that, you got to see what that looks like on the world stage to other people looking from the outside in, like those optics of Donald Trump cowered in his seat talking about how great she is as the president of China. I mean, again, it's got to be a victory on so many different fronts for China, as opposed to, again, nothing that we got here per the United States.
Good job with the 200, which I'm sure they will. And that's General Electric also, the engines. So they're buying General Electric. So it's approximately 450 engines, 200 planes.
Who's this guy in the background, too? Because he seems awfully interested in what questions are being asked and what the response is given. Like, he's the only one in that back room. You can see Eric's fucking dumb face in the background. You can see Sean Hannity. There's another woman in the background. But this guy here seems to be the one that's really, really intent on hearing all of the questions and the responses to it. Anybody know who this character is? Let me know in the chat if you know who this character is. I know I've seen him before. I'm just not fully aware of what his name is, nor is it important enough for me to remember. So enlighten me in the chat.
150 if they do a good job. We had an amazing time. It was a very historic. Oh, look who we have. Hello, David.
It wasn't historic by any stretch of the imagination. The only history there, the only thing that's historic is it's been about, 10 or so years since a U.S. president has gone to China. Other than that, there was nothing substantial accomplished. Nothing concrete came out of that. All that was fucking put on the table was basically more help for the China, more cooperation with China, more assistance to China in alleviating some of the pressures that have been put on China by the United States previously by previous presidents' policies.
It was a very historic couple of days, I think. Million days.
Sir, I know there'll be a lot of questions around the China trip, but just first on Iran, have you rejected the latest proposal from Iran, or where does that stand?
Well, I looked at it, and if I don't like the first sentence, I just throw it away.
Again, what another remarkable statement from the president of the United States. If I don't like the first sentence, I'm going to throw it away. Like, how fucking ignorant are you, right? How careless are you to, again, the problems that are now being faced by the Americans that you're supposed to be presiding over, that are supposed to be your number one focus, right? So he talked about how he doesn't give a shit about the financial pressures being placed upon you. And now he's talking about how if the first sentence doesn't appeal to Donald Trump, he's not going to read the deal. Meanwhile, it may have some benefit in alleviating the pressure and getting us out of this circumstance that we're in. But he's not even going to, even sit down and read the deal because it doesn't have his name in the first sentence. Like, it's just an ignorant way to go about this. Like, he's clearly not winning militarily. So you have to, in fact, there's only two ways out of this: military action and then eventually negotiation if somebody capitulates, or negotiations. There's no other way out of this. You know what I mean? So again, if you're not going to win militarily, if you're not able to win militarily, like we've talked about in the U.S. intelligence assessments and how long Iran can hold out, to withstand the blockade, what their military capabilities still are, what their drone and missile capabilities still are. Doesn't seem like we're having the effect that we want to have as far as military capabilities are concerned, regardless of the amount of strikes, regardless of the Navy that has been eradicated, regardless of the Air Force that has been eradicated, right? Like, this idiot's dumb enough now to have to admit that he killed everybody that would have had the power to negotiate with him in the first place. Like, that's another one of his dumbass statements. I think he talks about, like, I forget how he puts it here. I think he says like first tier, third tier, fourth tier, something bullshit like that, which makes no sense when talking about hierarchy and leadership anyway. But the fact that you have to be like, well, we don't know who we're talking to. And I think Mike Johnson has to state it too. We're not sure who we're communicating with and talking to because we killed everybody that would have had the power to enact some of these policies or to make some of these decisions. Well, that's your fucking problem. What an idiot you are. Why would you eliminate and kill all of the people that had the power to make some of these fucking decisions? Like, that just seems like you just threw the country into chaos and you fucked yourself at the same time, because now you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who's pulling the strings, right? You don't know who can fucking, say yes or no to some of the to some of the ass that we have here. Like, it's chaos, and it remains to be chaos. But like I said, we'll see in a couple of these clips coming up with Trump and Sean Hannity some of his statements and how he's kind of setting the table for basically just walking away. Remember how we talked to Preston Stewart the other day? One of the main questions that I asked Preston was, what worries you the most? What worries you the most? What is the scenario that worries you the most with the war with Iran? And one of the things he stated, above and beyond, obvious, military devastation and ships being sunk and planes being hit and U.S. service members, losing their lives and being injured, above and beyond that, it would be, the aspect of just walking away. Right? Because at this point, it sends a clear message, a clear signal to a lot of the bad actors in the world that, as long as you have some fucking card to play, as long as you have some sort of Strait of Hormuz type of power play, as long as you have enough weapons and ammunition and missiles and drones to kind of fend off the United States for a little bit of time, then you too can have and gain some power and respect. And you too can make it seem like you've won a war over the United States. So it's like, it's sending the signal out there of like, okay, everybody has to accrue all the weapons they possibly can to give themselves the best aspect, the best possible chance to negotiate when inevitably the United States comes calling. So again, it sends a clear signal, but that's the conundrum that Trump has gotten us into, right? We're kind of fucked if we do, we're fucked if we don't in this aspect, right? We're screwed if we continue military capabilities, we're screwed if we continue on with the bombing and the droning of Iran, as well as Iran's going to obviously be retaliating into to the Arab states around there, and obviously to the U.S. bases and the U.S. The U.S. servicemen and women in the area. So again, there's no real way to get out of this, because you can't walk away and give everybody the wrong message. And again, the escalations don't seem to be having the effect, the impact that the United States military and especially Donald Trump wants to say that they're having. You know what I mean?
The first sentence, an unacceptable sentence, because they're fully agreed, no nuclear, and if they have any nuclear of any form,
They haven't fully agreed no nuclear. They have not fully agreed no nuclear. Again, the last thing that we saw was basically, we'll agree to wrap up this war if you agree to have this nuclear talk sometime in the distant future. That's the last thing that we saw. Again, paraphrasing, of course, but something very much along those lines.
So 20 years is not enough for you. It's got to be a permanent. No, 20 years is enough, but the level of guarantee from them is not enough. In other words, it's got to be a real.
Again, this is a big aspect of what I'm talking about as far as the Hannity interview, right? How many times have we heard from Donald Trump that, the nuclear problem was the biggest problem? We can't possibly allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. It's nuclear. All of a sudden now on with Sean Hannity, he's seemingly, like I said, setting the table for, it's really not that big a deal anyway. It's kind of been buried under granite and it's now dust and they can't have it. We can't have it. Basically, they've said that only China and the United States has the equipment to do it. So maybe we can just kind of wash our hands of that and we'll think about that another day. That's kind of, the vibe that everybody's getting from some of the statements from Trump that we'll look at in just a couple minutes here, coming up with Sean Hannity. But, just remember how much he's talking about it on Air Force One about nuclear. And then all of a sudden on with Sean Hannity, it's a totally different fucking tune.
It's not a big
means you gotta get all the fuel out and no more production.
You have to get everything, but we're not even talking about, I call it the nuclear dust. Came up with a term which seems to have caught on.
I'm not talking about it because they would not remove the...
they said that they can't remove it because they don't have the technology to remove it.
Well,
they don't have the type of tractors. They say the only one, they told me directly, They said the only one that can remove it is China or the U.S. We're the only ones with the
And,
equipment.
I mean, what are the fucking chances that's true, right? They have the capabilities to not only come up with the facilities, build the facilities, have the knowledge and the know-how to enrich uranium, right? They had the ability after Operation Midnight Hammer to rebuild their capabilities at a rate that we were, not told was possible, right? It was obliterated. All of their capabilities for years and years and years down the line wasn't even a need to be thought about anymore. All of a sudden, now it's the main aspect as to why we engaged in this full-scale war with Netanyahu, with the IDF, right? But now it's like, I'm not sure what's going on. You think that they have the capabilities to enrich uranium to a point of having nuclear weapons, but you don't think they have the capabilities, the knowledge, and the know-how to build a fucking tractor to dig this shit up? I don't know. Doesn't seem to kind of track, right? Doesn't seem to track. If they got all of these capabilities, they got these genius scientists, right? These nuclear fucking engineers and shit working on this. They can do that, but they can't come up with a tractor. They don't have the equipment to dig this stuff up if need be. I have a hard time believing that one as well.
They said you were right. It is a complete obliteration. With that being said,
they did absolutely fucking not say that. Not a goddamn. He doesn't know who he's talking to. How could they say that? Who's he talking to that said that? Give me the name of the person that said that, please. What leader over there in Iran? What dignitary? What member of the IRGC said that? That you were right, sir. You did obliterate all of our nuclear capabilities, right? Please? What memo was that in? Because I failed to see that being reported by mainstream media.
I want to get it. And they agreed to it, but then they took it back, but they'll agree to it eventually.
Can I ask you about Taiwan? What did President Xi say to you about Taiwan? And what did President Xi say to you about Taiwan?
How the fuck did he not hear her the first time? She's screaming at the top of her goddamn lungs, and he's like, huh? What? Speak up.
And are you still going to approve the arms sale?
Okay, here's a great question. Are you still going to approve the arms sale, right? Which, again, should have absolutely nothing to do with his meeting with Xi. Should not have to be discussed, shouldn't be discussed with Xi. Not his deal, okay? This is our alliance, our partnership with Taiwan, something that was already allocated to Taiwan and just needs to be signed off by the president. Now, all of a sudden, talking about, well, I'm not going to discuss that. We can't talk about, we've had a discussion with Xi, and I'm not going to abide by, what happened in 1980 something. That was a long time ago. Like, listen to his response to this, like really trying to get a workaround, and now basically saying that, President Xi of China has direct say in whether or not the United States is going to provide weapons to Taiwan or come to Taiwan's aid if, in fact, China decides to kick something off, right? So listen to his, response. And again, this isn't filling anybody with confidence, and this is only giving, China and President Xi more, ability and trust in the fact that they will have the upper hand, especially knowing what we know about the United States stockpiles at this moment in time. Right? Like, that's not a good look on the world stage. You don't want to have that being kind of blasted out there to our enemies. The fact that we're really lacking in stockpile, and if somebody, were to kick off a much larger event somewhere else on the globe, we'd be in a fucking whole world of shit. I can tell you that much. But listen to his response to the question about providing weapons to Taiwan.
So, President Xi and I talked a lot about Taiwan. He thinks they cannot have anything to do with what they're doing. I mean, he's, against very much what they're doing. We talked about Taiwan. We talked about...
And you pushed back on that, of course. I mean, he's outright saying that the Chinese president says that the United States should have no involvement whatsoever in the in the Taiwan affair, in the Taiwan situation, which, of course, would be a situation, in fact, the United States president would definitely push back and say, well, not only do we definitely have, some say in this matter, we have U.S. troops stationed on Taiwan, right? We have agreements, partnerships with Taiwan, right? We have economic trade with Taiwan. So we absolutely have a kind of a fucking horse in this race, if you will. So the fact that you're now saying you wish we wouldn't, I don't really give a fuck, right? That's what the U.S. president's supposed to say in that situation. Of course, a little more diplomatically, but I haven't been well trained in that affair yet.
And I think we have a very good understanding with both. On Taiwan, he does not want to see a fight for independence because that would be a very strong
Which again is not his fucking say, okay? Taiwan, sovereign. They want to be sovereign. Should not have a say in what they fucking do, right? I know this all stems from 1949 and the shakeup in the leadership and half the leadership going over to Taiwan. But again, we're talking about 2026 and partnerships, alliances, world trade, where we get a lot of our chips and stuff like it's kind of crazy now. When you're talking about Donald Trump kind of switching lanes, changing tunes, about how we make decisions on what we're going to do, based off of our alliance and partnership with Taiwan. And now all of a sudden, President Xi in China has a lot more say in what takes place, apparently.
And I heard him out. Are you going to change your wording? No, I didn't make a comment on it. I heard him out. I have a lot of respect for him. On Iran, it's very interesting. He feels strongly they can't have a nuclear weapon. He said that very strongly. They cannot have a nuclear weapon, and he wants them to open up the strait. But as he said, they closed it, and then you closed them with a smile. And it's true. We control the strait, and they've done no business. Literally, they've done no business in the last 2.5 weeks, which is approximately $500 million a day. So we have, we're doing very well on all fronts.
Oh yeah, all fronts, doing very well on all fronts. I mean, the guy is living with his fucking head in the clouds. It's ridiculous to say that at this point, right? People are talking about the world being on fire, and he's talking about, we're firing on all cylinders type of thing. It's like, that is not what's happening. That's not what people are feeling in their daily lives, right? That's not the problems and the economic impacts that have fucking come from your war in Iran and your other ridiculously disastrous economic decisions that you've placed upon the world with either tariffs or other fucking things that you've said or done. It's crazy.
Before we leave Taiwan, Mr. President, President Xi said that there was a risk of conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan. What's your response to that?
I don't think there's a conflict, other than we don't need their strait. We don't need the
And again, this is referencing, and I'm sure I'm going to butcher the pronunciation, but the Thucydides trap, right? Which was mentioned by Xi, was brought up. Not only that, but this is, if I remember correctly, if I was kind of reading this correctly, is basically the theory of two nations getting so big that they eventually have to face off against each other, and it will come to, some sort of blows, if you will. But again, this was something said by Xi, which again, people were taking, and even people on the Republican side, the GOP side, as we'll see a little bit in the show, we're taking this as kind of a sleight of hand, was taking this as kind of like a backhanded threat by the Chinese government, a shot at the United States. And then there was also, like I said, Donald Trump putting out a Truth Social trying to kind of mitigate the damages of Xi. Allegedly, I haven't seen the actual, the verbiage. I haven't seen the actual interview or place in which he says it, but allegedly Xi calling the United States a declining country, in which Donald Trump felt necessary to take to Truth Social to try to, again, do some damage control on that, coming out and basically saying that he must have been referencing, the 4 years under Joe Biden and not anything that's taking place right now, the spin that he has to put on it that nobody's buying whatsoever. But we'll get into that and a lot more, obviously, after just another minute or two of this. Like I said, we don't have to run through 2 minutes. It's about 27 minutes, so don't think that I'm going to subject you to all of it. Just like I said, another couple questions should give you kind of the idea you need to know about the questions asked and obviously the ridiculous answers being given by this fool.
Mr. President Xi said there was a risk of conflict with the U.S. over Taiwan.
No, I don't think so. I think we'll be fine. He doesn't want to see a war. And you have two things. You have the Iranian situation, and that I think we agree almost entirely, other than he's a buyer and we're not. We don't need it. And on Taiwan, he doesn't want to see a movement for independence. He says, look, we've had it for thousands of years, and then at a certain period of time it left, then we were going to get it back. They had the Korean War. A lot of things happened. We have all history. But
so again, the complete whitewashing of the Taiwan situation right there by the U.S. president, making it seem like it's really not a big deal. They had it for 1,000 years. It's kind of theirs. He might have a point. You never know. Even though Taiwan wants to, their own sovereignty, right? If they don't want to, they want to completely talk about their independence, and they also would like to see the United States back them up in that call for independence. Again, this is the United States president basically saying, it's a little skirmish. It's a thing. Basically, China is right in this whole aspect, but I'm going to give them the opportunity to tell us whether or not we should back Taiwan up with weapons that have already been appropriated for them.
On Taiwan, he feels very strong. I made no commitment either way. We'll see what happens.
What about the arms sales to Taiwan?
I'll make a determination over the next fairly short period.
You're not necessarily going to go ahead. It was your
I'll
proposal.
make a determination. I'm going to see. I have to speak.
Did you hear what the question was? You're not necessarily going to go ahead. It was your proposal in the first place, right? So now after this meeting with the Chinese president, you can see how he's kind of backtracking, walking that back a little bit, obviously showing some power and some influence being shown by Xi in whatever conversations that were had either in front of or behind the closed doors, right? Seems like it had some impact. As we always say, the last person typically to speak to Donald Trump typically gets the upper hand, typically gets what they want, right? And it's the last thing that is repeated by this asshole, whatever's floating around in that cavernous space on top of his fucking neck is what he recites. So again, after this meeting with Xi, it's no surprise that he's kind of trying to walk this back a little bit and either delaying it or again, just trying to nix it and shelve it altogether.
Person that right now is, you know who he is, that's running Taiwan.
Mr. President, did President Xi make any firm commitment to put pressure on the Iranians to reopen the Strait of Hormuz?
I'm not asking for any favors, because when you ask for favors, you have to do favors in return.
Again, we're talking about the war in Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, the need that China has for the oil that comes from Iran. And Donald Trump doesn't put any pressure, doesn't bring up even, in fact, once that I've heard so far in this about the assistance, the intelligence sharing by the Russians, by the Chinese for the Iranians. Not only that, but the weapons communications, right? The sending back and forth of, I believe it was, I think it's like, parts for drones that have been going back and forth, right? Obviously, we know the partnership between Russia and Iran, which we've long looked at. I mean, nothing along those lines that you want to bring up, sir. No pressure that you want to put on these people that are, again, responsible for helping the enemies that we're now engaged in, or our allies are engaged in, or with, I should say. Like, nothing along those lines you want to bring up. It's fucking remarkable. It really is. It's crazy.
We don't need favors. We've wiped out their armed forces, essentially. We may have to do a little cleanup work because we had a little month-long ceasefire, I guess you'd call it.
What the fuck does that mean? We may have to do a little cleanup, right? So does that mean that's kind of like, giving him permission for another, what do you call it? Excursion? I forget what word he used at this point, but is that what he's supposed to be using as justification? Like, it's just, we have to do a little cleanup. That's what he's going to call the next phase. Right? It's crazy the fact that they think that they could just pull this like rhetorical fucking trick on us and be like, nope, we closed the name of that one. That section's closed. We're going to now rename this new section of the war something different. So we get a whole new 60-day clock before we have to go to Congress. Like, that's not how that fucking works. Like, you really think you're getting one over on us by just changing the name, saying Operation Epstein Fury, that part's over. Now we're going to do Project Freedom. Okay, Project Freedom's over. Now we're going to do this next aspect. We're going to go what? Project Cleanup, he's going to call it. And then he's supposed to get a new fucking fresh time clock. That's not how we roll. That's not how it fucking works. And I'd really like for more people in Congress to be fucking screaming at the top of their lungs, informing the American people that that's not how it works and that they're not going to be fooled by this bullshit. And then they are going to be demanding the appropriate fucking actions being taken and the permission by Congress being utilized as far as the appropriate, authorization for continued military use in Iran. It's fucking nuts. That's what I would like to be hearing.
A blockade that's so effective. That's why we did the ceasefire. We really did the ceasefire at the request of other nations.
Yeah, we did. We really didn't want to win the war too quickly, right? As Jesse Waters put it, like we wanted the Iranians to be able to save face, right? We didn't want to like, again, just totally win the war all in one day. That's no fun. Who wants to win a war all in one day? And then you got to deal with like the embarrassment that the Iranians would have felt. Like, that's literally what Jesse Waters was trying to portray on Fox News as like the reason in which Project Freedom was canceled so quickly. Like, maybe there's some, it's got to be the fact that Donald Trump didn't want to like really embarrass, you don't want to win the war too outright. You know what I mean? It's like, what? Did you really just say that on fucking live TV?
We wouldn't have really been in favor of it, but we did it as a favor to Pakistan, who are terrific people, the field marshal.
Yeah, Pakistan, who again is allowing Iran to use land routes to sell at least some portion of the oil that hasn't been able to get through the Strait or out of Cog Island. That Pakistan, the one that's supposed to be the mediators in this.
The Prime Minister. But no, I mean, President Xi and I agree on many things, and we agree very much on trade. We're going to be doing.
I mean, I can't keep my eye. The guy is so fucking intense in the background and listening on to every single word of what's asked and what's answered here. Like, he's literally at some point just like got his ear, as all you can see is his fucking earlobe, because he's dying to hear the questions being asked so intently.
Doing a lot of trading. our farmers are going to be taken in. I mean, our farmers are going to be very happy with the deal we made.
Yeah, I'm sure the farmers, much like they were happy in your first administration when China completely fucked us on the trade deal that you made and signed in that one. And again, while we were having people in this country line up in fucking long lines to get bottled water and to buy toilet paper and shit and fucking fighting people at the supermarkets, this motherfucker is selling soybeans and beef to China at that same time. Meanwhile, again, they're reneging on at least 50% of the deal that they were supposed to have fucking accomplished and buying a lot of things from our U.S. manufacturers, our U.S. farmers, which didn't come to fruition. Again, you'll remember that Donald Trump had to bail out the farmers to the tunes of fucking billions and billions of dollars in the first administration because of the bullshit that he put them through, much like he's doing in the second term with the tariff bullshit. We've played multiple instances on this podcast of farmers all over the country pissed off at Donald Trump for one reason or another, whether it's their, the lack of labor that they've been able to hire, or again, the deals that they're not getting from the overseas partners that were fucking vital in keeping some of these manufacturers alive in the first place, especially in some of the off seasons or just in general, right? But again, it doesn't seem to be, on the tops of it. Oh, thank you, Colleen. I see you in there. Thank you, everybody, gifting too. The parting gift of rose seeds from China was, again, that's another one. Great, Colleen. Awesome. Because like I said, the masterclass of trolling and gamesmanship, the kids. I haven't seen a lot of people point this out. In fact, I've been very disappointed with the mainstream media's coverage of this trip. Seems to be a lot of the fucking same. Oh, Paul, look at the fucking the welcome he got. And oh my goodness, not recognizing that nothing's coming from this and that we have huge problems. And again, this goes kind of flies in the face of everything that we've been trying to do for many years. But again, that's another thing, because they sent him home with rose seeds, basically, knowing that he's destroyed the rose garden, right? So it kind of like another fuck you from the Chinese, parting shot, if you will. Like, we know what you did. Not only that's, the kids coming out and greeting him like, we know what you did type of thing. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I was getting out of it. But like I said, it was such a masterclass of trolling and gamesmanship that a lot of people didn't even recognize it. The YMCA, I mean, let's be real, people. Let's be fucking real. You think they did that out of a sign of respect, or they were fucking pointing and laughing all the fucking way home while they were playing that one?
Instinct that he will put pressure, that he will try and get them to
ask him to put pressure, because I don't need favors.
He's literally asked if he's going, if he told China to put pressure on Iran. Again, the same people, they're responsible for utilizing with different parts and pieces for drones, different again, intelligence assessments for attacking U.S. bases. And he says, we don't need to put any pressure on him. We don't need it. Nope. It's like Pete Hegseth, right? Months ago when he was talking about, I forget what actually fucking military engagement it was at this point. There's been so many, but he basically was asked if, do you want to send a message to China? Do you want to send a message to Russia, based off of the military action? He said, no, none of this involves or has to do with neither of them, not utilizing the moment to say, hey, this is the pressure that we could put upon you guys as well. Would have been the one good thing that he could have put out there as far as pressure on our enemies. But that's the one thing that they fucking refuse to do at every turn. So one thing that Donald Trump is consistent upon is his love, his affection, his fucking admiration for these dictators, for these autocrats all over the world. Much like there was a report, I don't know if I pulled that up, but there was somebody basically that worked with Donald Trump in his first administration that said she used to prepare him for these meetings, for these different, these different political meetings and affairs all over the world. And basically, no matter how much you prepared for it, like, it wouldn't matter, because as soon as he got in the room with Putin, or as soon as he got in the room with Kim Jong-un, like, it was just admiration and total control and lover boy mentality as far as Donald Trump was concerned. And everything that you worked on as far as what you were supposed to say, the points that you were supposed to make, things on the world stage that need to be looked at, talked to, and fixed, like, all of those went out the window as far as the, it's almost like the cartoon where the fucking hearts come out of the eyes of the cartoon when they see like a pretty girl or a, whatever it may be that they're a cartoon representative of at that point in time. But that's kind of what I get as far as every time he's in a room with Vladimir Putin, talking about Vladimir Putin, talking about Xi Jinping, Viktor Orban, you name it. And if it's an autocrat, a dictator, somebody that's been in power for a long time, he fucking loves him. He'll get right on his knees. Won't be able to get back up, but boy, he'll get on his knees real quick.
I think he will. I think automatically he'd like to see it opened up. He gets about 40% of his energy or his oil from that, from the strait. We get none. We don't need it.
Mr. President, on Truth Social, you said
And well, this will be the last question, and we'll dive on to the next aspect here, the next topic that I wanted to dive on to as well. So I appreciate you guys for sticking with me through this. I know it's not easy, but it's been a while since, again, we've touched upon our roots at calling out basically an entire conversation that this guy's had. So thank you for sticking with me. Hit that like button. This is Blunt Politics Podcast. My name's Brian, and I really do appreciate you guys for taking the time out of your day to spend a little bit of it here with me. Thank you.
President Xi had made a reference to the decline of the U.S. We didn't hear him say that. Maybe it was something he said in private to you. So what was it, first of all, that he said that prompted you?
So this is the question about Xi's alleged decline, America being in decline question, as asked by, I'm not sure if he works for the New York Times. My apologies for not recognizing on that one. But basically he's asked, we haven't seen that being said in any of the statements. We haven't seen that in any of the transcripts from any of his speeches. Can you tell us where you were getting that from? Why you felt the need to post onto Truth Social that, that Xi Jinping must have been talking about the Biden administration or America under Biden, which we'll look at in just a second after this as well. But this is the answer he has to this question.
He made a statement. It might not have been from him. It was somebody, but they talked about the decline. But he said today, and he said it very publicly, he said the U.S. was declining for the last 4 years.
Totally made up. Totally fucking pulled right out of his ass, trying to come up with any justification, some reasoning as to why that happened. Right now, I think he's kind of feeling like maybe he was getting played, like maybe he responded to something that wasn't a real statement said by Xi. The other thing was the Thucydides, and try saying that 5 times fast, the Thucydides trap was something that was mentioned by Xi, which we'll go over. But as far as, again, the alleged calling the U.S. a country in a decline, which is something that Donald Trump has stated before, I haven't seen that. And again, he's being asked the same thing here by this reporter.
And he said what President Trump has done in the last 15, 16 months has been virtually a miracle.
Absolutely not. Didn't say any of those words. None of those words actually came out of the mouth of Xi at any point in time whatsoever during this trip.
He said we have the hottest country anywhere in the world.
That, you know what, that sounds like something that Xi Jinping would say, right? I mean, we know it's just the guy that never smiles, the guy that looks unhappy at every fucking point, at every moment, on every single day. That sounds like something he would say. He's definitely talking about how the United States is the hottest country on the planet to this point. I'm sure that's the way he describes a lot of different nations as like hot or not, right? He's probably all over the internet doing hot or not ratings for different countries. So sure, if you check, Xi Jinping's different fucking search history, like does that honestly, come on. At no point the reporters was like, well, that sounds like you just made that completely up. That sounds like something that would never fucking happen. And I'm curious when he said that now. Like the whole thing's ridiculous. But he goes on at some point. We don't have to subject you to it, but he goes on to demean, I believe that same reporter that was asking him that question, calling him fake news, a fake reporter, a fake human, whatever the fuck a fake human is at this point. You think he'd know what a fake human was since he hangs around with Elon Musk so much. But this was I saw this reported here by NBC News as well. See if there's any insight and information as to, maybe whether he did say this or what the conflict was that was actually being discussed here by Xi. And this is NBC News says, Xi warns Trump of possible conflict over Taiwan at Grand Beijing Summit. The two leaders met for high-stakes talks Thursday at the Great Hall of People in Beijing, with trade and the Iran war also high on the agenda. Again, I don't know how they could say that when absolutely nothing was agreed upon. This goes on to say, Chinese President Xi Jinping warned Thursday of, quote, clashes and even conflicts with the United States over Taiwan, cautioning President Donald Trump that tensions over the Beijing-claimed island, could jeopardize ties between the world's two biggest economies. Now, does that sound like anything that we just heard from Trump? Does that sound like, anything that was discussed about Taiwan? Again, even asked about Taiwan during this trip, Trump refused to answer any questions on whether or not it was even discussed. Some of the transcripts and some of the summaries put out by both sides, by the White House and the Chinese side. So the White House had no mention whatsoever of Taiwan, and the Chinese basically made it the main focal point of their fucking press release that they put out. So you can see the discrepancies on both sides. It's a big problem for China, a big talking point for China, a big fucking problem for China, and something that they desperately are focused on. Meanwhile, on the United States side, wasn't even put out in the release. Donald Trump refusing to say if they talked about it or what they communicated, if in fact they did talk about it. Again, just total lack of transparency here. And seemingly everything that China wanted to get out of this trip, they got, and nothing beneficial to come to the United States out of this trip at all. It goes on here to say the stock warning was delivered as the two leaders met for high-stakes talks in Beijing as the start of their two-day summit. It contrasted with the public praise offered by both men as they arrived for a grand welcome ceremony at the Great Hall of the People in the Chinese capital. It goes on to say the rival superpowers entered the summit divided over thorny issues, including Taiwan. Thorny is really a mild way to put that. It said that the trade disputes and the Iran war, though both Washington and Beijing have sought to prioritize stability in bilateral relations after a turbulent start to Trump's second term. Differences in the two countries' tone Differences in the two countries' tone at the summit, as well as differing versions of what Trump and Xi discussed, reflected the likely difficulties in bridging those gaps. One persistent source of tensions in Taiwan, which Xi stressed to Trump, is the most important issue in U.S.-China relations, according to a Chinese readout of the meeting. If the if the issue is handled properly, the relationship can, quote, be generally stable. Said the readout from China's foreign ministry spokesperson. Otherwise, the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting the entire relationship in great jeopardy. Xi is said to have told Trump. So again, they're basically saying that this still has the likelihood here, if something isn't agreed upon, to basically come to blows, as it were. You know what I mean? Talking about the Thucydides trap there, and the two nations, if they become so big that they inevitably have to face off against one another, it inevitably brings us to the point of conflict at some point. Basically, a generalized threat, as you will. And I think Brett Baer, in a video we'll talk about in just a little bit, kind of recognized that. I think people even like Jack Posobiec were referencing this and talking about how this wasn't the victory that everybody wants to portray this as. This wasn't like this great historic meeting that everybody wants to portray this as. Like, there are still huge things to be discussed, huge problems that we face here in the future, and none of those seem to be, having concrete resolutions come out of this meeting whatsoever. But moving on here to our next, actually, no, 1 second before I forget, there was actually, I think, a video segment in this same, there was one here that I wanted to play as well. So if I could play just a couple minutes of this clip, just kind of getting into a little bit more of the high-stakes summit in China, just to see if there's any other details and things that come out of this that we need to know about. Hit that like button. Again, my name is Brian. This is Blunt Politics. And again, it is really, really appreciated for you taking the time out of your day to sit here and either engage in the chat or sit here and listen to me, fucking sit here and yap on about the news. So I appreciate you guys. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Hey, let's do a subscriber count here, because holy shit, have we been on a roll here lately, guys? I should have said this earlier. We're at 19,143 subscribers right now. Okay, less than 1,000 away from 20K. Okay, I didn't know if we were going to be able to get there before midterms, but it's looking likely now. It's looking likely. So if you guys could share the stream out, if you guys could put this on your social medias, if you could let people know, talk to friends and family, say, hey, if you like the blunt speak, if you're sick and tired of the way that people talk to you and you go through a bunch of fucking ads, if they're trying to sell you a bunch of stuff, if they're talking like they went to Harvard and you don't know shit, then you don't like the way that people, talk about politics, and you like this blue collar way of speak, send them over here to Blunt Politics. I would really appreciate it if you did that. And again, thank you to everybody gifting in the chat, signing up for YouTube memberships just underneath me, heading over to patreon.com, signing up for any one of the levels over there, getting merch at the Blunt Politics merch shop, and just going over to bostonbrian.com, checking out all of the good stuff we have over there. So very much appreciated. Let's just see if we can get into a couple minutes of this video real quick.
Welcoming President Trump here to Beijing. Rolling out the red carpet for the American president.
See, this is what I was talking about as far as the coverage here by the mainstream media. Like, it seems to be the same old as far as that's concerned. Oh, rolling out the red carpet and the fucking, the welcome that he got, and he must be respected type of aspect. And it's like, no. Of course, they're being looked at on the world stage, too. China's being looked at. They know if the U.S. president is coming, the eyes are going to be upon them. So a lot of the pomp and circumstance is to, again, save face on their end, too. It's not like they're going to come out here and just kind of like, throw down a shit fucking opening, a shit welcome for the U.S. president, because they're still having to deal with the U.S. presidency as opposed to the person that occupies that spot as well. But there was a couple moments in here. Let me see here. There was a couple skipping through this. Yeah, let's see what this was.
According to the British military, Let's talk about Iran. Minutes after the meeting wrapped, we spoke with Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Did President Trump raise the issue of Iran with China?
He did, and it was important because the Chinese side said they are not in favor of militarizing the Straits of Hormuz, and they're not in favor of a tolling system. And that's our position. We will never support an Iranian tolling system in the Straits.
But again, it's just words. These are all just fucking words. I don't understand why everybody's putting so much emphasis on this bullshit and what Trump is saying and what Rubio is saying. This is all just nonsensical bullshit words coming from, yep, yeah, we'll do that. Yep, sure. What do you need us to do? What do you want us to agree upon? Yeah, awesome. We're just going to say whatever we need to say to get through this fucking meeting, to make sure there's no problems here. And then whatever happens afterwards, we're going to make these completely totally opposite decisions as to what we talked about and agreed upon with whoever came over here from the United States. You know what I mean? Much like they did. Yeah, we'll buy all those soybeans in 2020. Yeah, don't worry. We'll fulfill all of those obligations. Meanwhile, they won't fulfill fucking half of them, right? Much like they've done with deal after deal after deal after deal. It's crazy. I mean, nobody brings up the intellectual property theft whatsoever that's been going on. The fact that they may be, wanting to meet with all of these representative CEOs of different companies so that they could, get a little bit more acquainted and maybe get some of the knowledge from some of their technology type of aspect. I'm just saying, I don't know. Nobody kind of throwing that out there.
Nor do we think they have a right to put mines in international waters.
What exactly did President Trump ask President Xi for when it comes to Iran?
He didn't ask him for anything. I mean, we're not asking for
nothing.
Help
nothing. Don't stop it. Don't stop providing them with different, components for drones and shit. Don't provide them. Don't stop providing them with different intelligence to again get around U.S. air defenses, the Iron Dome, so they can target U.S. facilities. Don't stop doing any of those things. There was no pressure or any ask by the U.S. president put on Xi as far as the war in Iran is concerned and his relationship with Iran, also with Russia. Nothing along those lines was discussed. So I just wanted to let you hear out of the cat's mouth himself, Marco Rubio, that wasn't even discussed, wasn't an issue, wasn't a problem. And now it doesn't even seem like the enriched uranium is a problem, guys. So when I talked about in the, the title of this podcast today, Trump sets the table for taco withdrawal in Iran, is this clip right here that people are talking about. Because this seems to me like at least the first sign here that we could actually say that Donald Trump's kind of setting the table for a withdrawal, for, no action or no goals to be accomplished, right? To be achieved in this fucking fight whatsoever, and just saying, okay, that's it. I think we've done enough. We've hit enough targets. We've sunk enough ships. We've taken down enough aircraft. We've taken out enough of their leaders. We've caused enough pain, as far as the economy, the world economy is concerned. So, why don't we'll wrap this up, all set. Don't worry about it. Like it never even happened. But here he is talking about and getting questioned by Sean Hannity about Iran's enriched uranium. And listen to this fucking conversation that they have. And a lot of people also talking about the fact that at a few points in this interview seemed to be, the most obvious points in which Sean Hannity was getting frustrated. I wouldn't say, overly frustrated or flustered or anything like that, but definitely wasn't liking some of the responses he was getting from Trump. And you can see him kind of cringe and wince and kind of maybe want to interject. So you can tell it's starting to kind of, weigh on the mind of Hannity, as well as far like how important the responses are and how fucking Donald Trump swings and misses every single pitch as far as the softball interviews and the softball questions that are tossed at him are concerned. But listen to this exchange here between Sean Hannity and Donald Trump, and then you guys let me know in the chat what you guys think. Does this sound like Donald Trump again setting the table, getting everybody kind of ready, getting them oiled up for just the automatic removal, just the complete pullout here, and saying that we've accomplished the goals, the war is won, don't worry about it type of thing? Meanwhile, the billions that we've spent, the soldiers that we've lost, obviously the price increases that we've seen, and how long those are going to sustain regardless if this war does end tomorrow. But again, here's this exchange that a lot of people are talking about, that, Donald Trump, showing his kind of, boredom, his disdain for the fight that has continued much longer than even he said it was going to happen. So check this out.
It's a big project. To get it, it's a big project.
Do you feel there's been people that have, and generals that I've spoken to, that think you have to get the dust, which is the enriched uranium, or have you been told there may be a way to entomb it, that they could never get to it?
So we were thinking about doing it early on.
And that sounds to me like Hannity trying to, again, throw Donald Trump a softball, like to try to give him an off-ramp. Like, let's maybe just say we could entomb it. Let's just maybe say, hey, let's just agree that you could bury it so deep We'll put so many fucking tons of fucking granite and concrete and everything else on top of it that nobody will be able to access it anywhere in the near future or anything like that. Like, he's trying to give them some sort of, like, I don't know, something else to say, some off ramp that he could use, as opposed to, again, boots on the ground, going in with our own fucking equipment, digging it out, being in enemy territory for a week and a half, as Donald Trump states here. Again, not sure that the Pentagon could be too happy if, in fact, that is the time frame given to Donald Trump on how long it would take to dig up the enriched uranium, that Donald Trump just went out there and blurted that out, the exact time frame, the exact timing that the United States expects or would expect to be on the ground, enemy territory, if they did try to pull off this mission. Again, it's like when he went out there and told the entire world where the ammunition storage was on the new Gerald Ford aircraft carrier, right? Like, he's like, yeah, it's not really smart to put all the weapons underneath where the captain sleeps or something along those lines. And everybody was like, you dumb son of a bitch. Like, the whole point is for them not to kind of have the blueprint of the ship and know where everything is, right? So they don't know where to strike. Like, you incompetent asshole. But he goes on here to talk about basically how it's not really a big deal. It's not the main priority anymore. As much as he talked about enriched uranium, as much as he talked about the main focus is not having, Iran come out of this with a nuclear weapon. Now, all of a sudden, it seems to be shifting. The sands seem to be shifting. And let me know what you guys think. Maybe I'm wrong.
And
about
it
getting
would take, it would take a while. It would take a week and a half. That's a long time to be in enemy territory. No, you're going to move these massive amounts of granite. You know, it's a granite's the hardest stone. It's amazing that those were really powerful bombs that we used. And don't forget, we hit it on top of that. We hit tomahawks on top of that. No, I don't think it's necessary, except from a public relations standpoint. I think it's important for...
Do you hear what he's saying? No, it's not important anymore to go in and get the enriched uranium, right? It's not important. It's only important from a public relations standpoint. And I believe he even goes on to say it's important for the fake media, right? So that he has a victory, something to, basically come back and show the mainstream media, like, again, fucking Neville Chamberlain coming back, waving that white piece of paper. He wants to be able to come back and hold the fucking suitcase or whatever the hell that holds the enriched uranium to be like, see, I told you the billions and billions and billions of dollars and the instability placed upon the world and the 13 dead U.S. service members and all of the fucking injured U.S. service members and all of the dead Iranian civilians and all of the dead Iranian fucking military members, all of the girls' schools that were hit, the hospital school, the hospitals that were hit, all of the civilian infrastructure that was bombed, like, all of that was worth it because I got the enriched uranium. Like, that's what he's desperate for, or at least was desperate for, but now seems to be like, not really a huge deal. If I was to do that, it basically so I could give a middle finger to the mainstream media, you know what I mean? Just for PR purposes now, is it kind of important to go in and get the enriched uranium? So it's like, okay, what are we doing then? What's the next step? What the fuck? Why do we still have ships in there then? Why do we still have soldiers in the airspace? Why do we still have people in the like? What's the fucking point then? Like, if it's just a PR related stance that you're in right now, and it's really not that important, like, what is the next goal? What are we still trying to accomplish here at this point in time? Doesn't seem to have an answer for it.
The fake news that we get it. I'm the one that said we're going to get it, and we're going to get it. We have our eye on it. So Space Force was my creation. I did that in my first term.
And again, still talking about, still willing to send boots on the ground into Iran to go get this, even as he states that it's really not that necessary, right? It's been buried. It's under fucking granite. They don't have the equipment. They say we have China, all the only people that have the equipment. They can build a bomb. They're supposed to be, able and smart enough to be able to build a bomb in a very short period of time. But somehow they can't build a fucking tractor, or they're not smart enough to know what tractor to buy from somewhere else around the planet to make that possible for them to have the, the ability to, again, dig this stuff up and move it around and stuff. They don't have those capabilities, according to Donald Trump, which is asinine.
End up going down as one of the most important of all of our military.
So it can be entombed.
Yeah, it can be.
With eyes on it.
It can be, but I'd rather get it, to be honest with you. It can be, a lot of things can happen, but...
He'd rather get it, but it's not important to get it. But he's going to go in and get it, but it's also just a PR move. If they did go in and get it, it's really not that important for them to get it because they don't have tractors, guys. They don't have tractors. You see, it could just sit there the entire time because the Iranians, of course, they don't have the education necessary enough to know how to utilize, build, or buy a fucking tractor or a specific tractor in this event, right? They just don't have the capabilities, apparently, if you listen to Donald Trump. But a lot of people bringing this up. I think is there another section of this? Hold on.
And even despite the statement that, they can't get it, they are, first of all, if we left right now, it would take Iran 25 years to rebuild, and it can never be like it was. It would take 25 years.
So what the fuck are we doing? What are we doing still in the area? What's the problem? If it's a PR move to go get the enriched uranium and it's going to be 25 years before they can rebuild, what the fuck are we still spending billions and billions of dollars a day to be in the area? What is the purpose? What is the goal now? What is the intent? Seems to be like you're just playing fucking cops and robbers at this point. Like he's like splashing in the bath with fucking G.I. Joes and tanks and shit like that, just moving them around on a map like Hitler at the last days of his life. Like, yeah, move the 6th military, move the 6th army. No, they don't exist anymore, sir. They've been eliminated for quite some time now. Okay, move the 3rd military, move the 3rd army. Nope, they're dead. They're dead too, sir. Nope. Okay, let's move the fucking 14th. Nope, they're also have been eradicated, sir. So those are just, fake dots on a map that you're moving around. Those really don't mean anything. That's basically what he's doing at this point. It doesn't mean anything. It's a PR move to get the enriched uranium. It's been buried. They don't have the equipment. It'll take them 25 years to rebuild, even if we'd stop today. But meanwhile, we're going to persist. We're going to continue to do, again, escalatory attacks, or again, we're just going to decide to walk away at some point and say, you know what? Apparently they can't buy a fucking tractor in Iran, so we don't have to worry about it. Like, what? What are we doing?
I would rather get it, but we have our eyes on it. We know exactly what's happening there. We had the other day, there was a
you know what's crazy? We had our eyes on it through the JCPOA too. We had eyes on it. We had people on the ground that gave us like detailed reports and could say, hey, this is how much they dug up. This is what they did with it. There was cameras to say, hey, this is what they did with it. This is where it's going from here. This is where it was dug up. This is where it was being brought. Like, we had those things, and not to say that it was perfect by any stretch of the imagination. No fucking negotiation is, no deal ever is. All things can be improved upon. All things can be fucking worked on, right? That could still be the basis for negotiations going forward, as opposed to ripping that up and having no deal going forward to fucking shake a stick at, right? That's just not how you're supposed to govern. That's not the smart way of governance whatsoever. Again, a bad deal that needs improvement is still better than no deal whatsoever that leads to world war. I mean, that's kind of, conclusive in my mind.
Tried to get into the chute. We saw there was a door.
All right, but enough of this asshole real quick, because there's a few more other things that I want to dive onto here. Talking about ass kissing, boot licking, crawling out of somebody's taint. Here's the double dose of Benny Johnson shamelessly filleting Donald Trump at this point. There's 2 videos. Don't have to dive into much of the first one here. Just the opening is some of the most ridiculous sycophancy that I've seen in quite some time. And I've told you guys this. Benny Johnson, at some point a month or 2 ago, made the decision that he wasn't going to report upon reality. He wasn't going to report upon the facts. Not that he ever did, but he made a concerted effort that he wasn't even going to touch upon any of the negativity, any of the negative fucking election results, or negative rhetoric going towards Donald Trump. It was going to be all pure propaganda from here on out. It was going to be, I'm on Donald Trump's team, I'm on Donald Trump's side, and I'm going to ride down with the fucking band here on the Titanic. That's what he's decided. So this is, again, what type of content you get when you do this type of, sycophancy, defending a pedophile, defending the Epstein class, defending somebody that's running the economy into the ground. This is what it looks like when you do that type of content. Check this out. Like I said, just a minute of this first one, and then the second one is the doozy. But here he is, Benny Johnson, crawling out of Donald Trump's anus to give another report on his China visit.
The single most important thing that happened today in U.S.-Sino relations, which is how you say United States and China, if you're talking in diplomatic speak.
Right. I mean, do you think he actually knows that Sino is Latin, is derivative from a Latin term? Do you think he actually knows what the history is behind that? Or do you think he just read that somewhere and was like, oh, that sounds like something I could use to my audience to prove that I'm a very smart guy. I'm a very smart guy, right? Does he know where China got its name, or why we call here in the Western world China in that regard? No. I wonder if he knows anything about the Qin dynasty or anything like that. I'm sure he doesn't. But again, he wants to put it out there to his audience. I know what Sino means. Awesome, Benny. Awesome. As he's about to again smooch Donald Trump on both sides of his ass cheek.
Is that they are no longer staring backwards, which is what's going on here.
No, it's not what's going on there. They're both facing forwards, you dumb fuck. What the fuck are you talking about? Again, he tries to do this with the same picture. He tries to portray this random shot of Biden and Xi walking through some random door during some fucking random meeting that they had as some signal. It's basically the only time I've ever seen Xi actually almost crack a smile, right? No, they're not looking backwards. They're both looking forward. She just happens to be behind Biden. So I don't know what he's trying to get across as far as this message is concerned, but it's fucking ridiculous. This is not looking backwards. That's not what's happening, regardless of how you try to portray it.
They're looking forwards to a very bright future and something that is a remarkable tour de force for President Trump, because obviously Donald Trump has gone very hard on China. Donald Trump has probably blustered against China and savaged China more than any other singular nation, and other than Iran, probably, on social media. And that's what I think is really interesting, is that all of that seems to be behind us, and now the future looks very, very bright. So bright, in fact.
Based off of what? That's the main question here. Based off of what? What deals, what promises that are actually going to be beneficial, that you think they're actually going to stick to? Like, what is the outcome of this that you're so fucking happy about? I don't understand it whatsoever. It's just pure propaganda at every turn. Like, this was historic. It was monumental. Can't give you a reason as to why it was monumental, because I guess Boeing sold 200 planes or some bullshit. That's supposed to be great for you, and the fact that you can't put food on the fucking table or fill your gas tank to get to work, that's supposed to somehow benefit you, I guess.
But the Army Band, the People's Liberation Army Band.
Love it. He continues to bring up the same shit, the same trolling, right? The same trolling that China's like, we got to do this. We got to do this. It'll make them look absolutely fucking stupid. YMCA, throw it on there. Kids, bring them on out. The Epstein class is coming over all on one plane. They're all going to be on Air Force One. Roll out the kids. I'm sure that'll be great imagery. And people somehow, somewhere across the land will understand the fucking trolling that's being done as far as that's concerned too. But like I said, it was only about the first minute or so in this one. And then there was the second one as well. Let me see. This next one here is where he really pulls out all the stops as far as this is concerned. Let's throw this one on the screen real quick. We'll get through this one pretty quickly as well, because we got a bunch of other things to talk about. But like I said, hit that like button. This is Benny Johnson filleting Donald Trump, trying to make this seem like, what's he named this one? Oh, this is about Elon as well. Elon Musk just revealed what really happened in Trump's China meeting. Internet goes insane. Doubt it. Very much doubt that it went insane. Check this out.
President Trump's only been in China for about 24 hours and has already been the single most important diplomatic envoy in the history of the presidency. I think.
I'm sorry, what? Excuse you? I could have sworn you just said it was the most important meeting in the history of the presidency. By what stretch of the imagination? Again, what pen was put to paper? What deal was signed? What what economic investment was guaranteed here or is guaranteed in the future? Because I don't see shit. I saw a bunch of Twitter posts like, they probably said they were going to buy maybe possibly 200 jets from Boeing. They mentioned soybeans at some point in time. They did agree that maybe the strait should be opened and that they think about not sending Iran any more weapons or intelligence to get around our air defenses. They said maybe on all of that stuff, but what a fucking great deal this was. What a great trip. Like, what? There's a bunch of fucking nonsense. Like, even the Republicans, like I said, there's a few in here. I'll put this on the screen. Let me see here. There was, let me see if I can find this real quick. Why can I never find these when I want? Was it that one or this one or this one? Yeah, it was this one right here real quick. Throw this on the screen because this was to separate, Benny Johnson a little bit. I don't want to give you back-to-back Benny Johnsons. This was posted by Rick Sanchez, right? And he says, did you hear President Xi's warning to Trump about falling into the Thucydides trap? Let me explain. And he goes on to explain what she meant in this. So again, like I said, to break up Benny Johnson just a little bit, not to overload you guys with too much Benny Johnson in a row. Here's a little bit from that post here by Rick Sanchez. And then there's another post here by Midas Touch, which also touched base on this. And they posted Donald Trump's Truth Social post. So we can check that out as well. But here's kind of what Rick Sanchez got out of that statement about the Thucydides trap as well. See if we can check this out, gain a little bit more knowledge on what she meant. And again, the kind of the backhanded slap in the face that he was giving Trump at the same time.
All right, I want to bring you up to date on what's going on between the meeting that Mr. Trump is having with Mr. Xi. And this thing is getting very interesting, by the way. So, first of all, Mr. Trump is not the Mr. Trump that we usually see with weaker negotiating opponents. How can I make that any more simpler? When it comes to Europe, Trump just bullies those guys, and they're all like, okay, because they're really weak. So he can do whatever the hell he wants with them, and he bullies them. Not so with Russia, not so with Iran, as I have been reporting all week. And as I told you yesterday, that I expected when Mr. Trump goes to China, he's not going to be able to be the Trump of old, not because of what's going on right now, because of what's happening in Iran. And China is in no position to be giving the game away. As a matter of fact, China is saying, look, from now on, sanctions, you can sanction whatever the hell you want. We're not going to pay attention to them. And we're going to continue our tariffs with you, including the 77% on American beef, 22% on soybeans, which has American farmers actually really pissed off. So the Chinese are saying, yeah, if you come to us and you ask nicely, we'll consider lowering those tariffs. Oh my God, how the worm has turned. And then, of course, there's the Thucydides trap. I didn't even know what this was, but you need to know about it because everybody's talking about it, and Mr. Xi's the one who brought it up. So Thucydides was a Greek warrior turned philosopher who essentially the theory that is used when describing U.S.-China relations and U.S.-Sino relations is about this Thucydides trap. And the Thucydides trap is essentially that when one power gets really, really large, it is able to overtake the other power, and then it's difficult to avoid war between those two opposing forces. And that's the fear. That's why Mr. Xi has just said in his opening remarks, no less, he expressing hope that the U.S. and China will be able to avoid whether the two countries can transcend the Thucydides trap and forge a new model.
So again, you add that along with the previous statement that we were talking about by one of the other Chinese representatives talking about, what was he? I think he said about deadly attacks and clashes, possible clashes is the statement that they said. So over the Taiwan issue, there was another statement put out by another Chinese official basically saying that there could be possible clashes and they're hoping to avoid that over the Taiwan problem. But, add that on top of Xi here talking about the Thucydides trap and the two nations here getting to a point where one outgrows the other and it's very difficult for these two nations to avoid war. Kind of gives you a little aspect in what these slightly, backhanded threatening messages are if the United States doesn't, basically play ball with the way that Xi Jinping and the Chinese government wants to see them play ball. So again, this was something else a lot of people were bringing up as well.
Relations between these two powers. So he said this, referring to the Thucydides trap, that in other words, let's avoid the expectation of war between us simply because we've grown big and you have always been big. Now the two of us are big. That doesn't necessarily mean we have to clash. But then she went even further, and this is where it gets interesting. It's being called a threat. You tell me if you think this is a threat. He said, the Taiwan question is the most important issue in China-U.S. relations. Then he says, if it is handled properly, looking at my notes, if it is handled properly, this bilateral relationship will enjoy overall stability. Otherwise, and here's where he gets, for Chinese palaver, this is strong. He says the two countries will have clashes and even conflicts, putting this entire relationship in jeopardy. So he's warning Trump. He's saying, if you fuck with us when it comes to Taiwan, this shit can get really serious. Pardon me.
And again, there was absolutely no back pressure put on to Xi by the United States president, by the United States delegation itself that went over there in response to that, or in response to, again, the pressures that have been continuously put upon them to, again, stay away from any engagements or actions that China wants to take place or happen with Taiwan itself. They don't want to see the United States sending weapons. They don't want to see the United States sending ships and soldiers to help out. So that's the pressure that they've been trying to put upon us consistently. And again, nothing, in return here by Donald Trump. No, yes, we are going to help our allies. Yes, we absolutely will come to the defense of our economic trade partners, and especially a country that now has United States service members stationed on it. Abso-fucking-lutely, we're going to take that seriously. We're going to take not only their safety, but the safety and security of the allies in that country very seriously. You'd think that would be something said by a United States president, but no. That leads us to this. This was a post put out by Midas Touch that says Trump must have just learned that when Xi Jinping invoked the Thucydides trap to his face, he was essentially calling the United States a nation in decline, which is, I think, where this whole "she said a nation, it was a nation in decline" stems from. Not so much said that directly, but kind of, the overarching sentiment coming from the rhetoric that he did state, not so much directly. But it does. It goes on to say now Trump is trying to spin it, claiming that she must have been talking about Biden. Again, how many times they have to refer back to Joe Biden to try to get them themselves out of a pickle is crazy. Goes on here to say really humiliating stuff. And if we bring this up, this is Trump's post that he put out there. He says, when President Xi very elegantly referred to the United States as perhaps being a declining nation, which again, nobody said that he directly said. Again, we haven't seen any transcripts. I haven't seen any statements, any press releases by the Chinese side that has that, those direct words, that direct statement said in it. But I think it's more or less the interpretation of the Thucydides trap, rhetoric that he did put in the speech there. But he goes on to say here that perhaps being a declining nation, he was referring to the tremendous damage we suffered during the 4 years of sleepy Joe Biden and the Biden administration. And on that score, he was 100% correct. So definitely not talking about the last year plus since Donald Trump has been in office and the disasters that we've seen that he's undertaken in that short fucking time span there. Not talking about that, but definitely talking about possibly maybe definitively the previous administration, as Donald Trump would love to have you believe. He goes on to say, our country suffered immeasurably with open borders, high taxes, yada, yada, yada. President Xi was not referring to the incredible rise that the United States has displayed to the world during the 16 spectacular months of the Trump administration, which includes all-time high stock markets and 401ks, military victory, and thriving relationship in Venezuela. The military decimation of Iran to be continued. Again, they're talking about the possibility for further action. Strongest military on earth by far, economic powerhouse again, yada, 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 $18 trillion being invested. President Xi congratulated me in so many tremendous victories and successes in such a short period of time. 2 years ago, we were, in fact, a nation in decline. On that, I fully agree with President Xi, but now the United States is the hottest nation anywhere in the world, and hopefully our relationship with China will be stronger and better than ever before. So Donald Trump immediately having to take to True Social there to basically be like, well, if he did say these things, he must have not been talking about me. He must have been talking about that other kid that had the weird pants on. You know what I mean? Like the baby that he is. He wasn't making fun of me. He was making fun of somebody else. He had to be making fun of somebody else because I'm the bestest. I've had the bestest months. Oh my God. But then again, that leads me to the people that did recognize this as the threat that it was, because it wasn't just people on the left. You know what I mean? It wasn't just people in the media speculating on this as well. This is even Jack Posobiec, known right-wing commentator, known MAGA hack himself, Jack Posobiec. Was he involved in the tenant media roundup as well? I always forget who are the other main players that were involved in that. This goes on to say, wow, must watch. Hours after Jack Posobiec interviewed the ambassador of Taiwan, Xi Jinping openly threatened the United States with war over Taiwan. And then it goes on to talk about some of the statements that he made here. And again, I'll just play the first couple seconds here. I'm not sure if I meant to stop it here, if I meant to start at the beginning. We'll start at the beginning. We'll go for it. But this is Jack Posobiec basically recognizing the underhanded, the backhanded threats, and again, the power kind of displayed here by Xi Jinping above and beyond the power kind of presented by the president of the United States, Donald Trump, who again seemed to cower and give all of the praise and love to Xi Jinping in this regard. But even Jack Posobiec recognizes this wasn't like an overarching victory. This wasn't like we came out of this smelling like roses type of fucking rhetoric that you're hearing from the right.
Yesterday, we interviewed the ambassador of Taiwan here on this program. And little did we know that just a few hours after that interview, where he talked about maintaining the status quo on Taiwan, where he thanked President Trump for maintaining the arms sales and the commitments to Taiwan, that when President Trump would meet with Xi Jinping, that Xi would openly threaten the United States with war over Taiwan, the island nation. And
so something that seemed to have flown right over the head of Donald Trump, flown right over the head of all the people in his administration and his cabinet that traveled along with him, right? The media seemed to pick up on it. The independent media definitely picked up on it and what he meant by the Thucydides trap. A lot of fucking smart people in independent media that knew exactly what was being referenced in that regard, right? I had to learn about it. I have no problems admitting that whatsoever. You know, I was a little late to the party, but now I know what it's going on. Now I know what it's referencing. I can definitely understand the rhetoric and, again, him espousing power and showing power over the United States in this statement, to the point where even Jack Posobiec, you know, fucking, like I said, MAGA commentator, MAGA hack, somebody who has no problems whatsoever carrying the water of this administration, right, doing the propaganda, much like Benny Johnson's doing. But in this point, even he has to be like, well, I recognize the threats. I recognize that this is a position of power taken by President Xi over and above the President of the United States. And we didn't seem to have a response. We didn't seem to have anything to fire back, any pressure to put on them for any of the things that we could be pressuring them about.
Let me be blunt, folks. This is the most striking I've ever heard a Chinese leader speak directly to a U.S. president, period, full stop. This is the most escalatory language we've ever seen from a Chinese leader, directly while the president of the United States is in the room before him. The reference to the Thucydides trap, the Peloponnesian Wars, Sparta, Athens, the rising power versus the fading power. Xi Jinping is saying that America is the fading hegemon and that they are the power on the rise.
So again, seems like Jack Posobiec got the message. Seems like he fucking read the forest and saw the forest through the trees as far as that was concerned, right? Much like it was kind of the slights and the, you know, the subtle shots that, you know, King Charles gave in his speech over here. You know, kind of, you gotta look into it into these speeches. And Donald Trump just isn't smart enough to get it, nor is anybody in his administration or anybody surrounding him. But, you know, even Fox News got it to a certain extent here because, you know, here's Brian Kilmeade stuttering and stammering, trying to figure out what lessons they can learn here, and basically talking about, I think, if I'm not mistaken, forgive me, I pulled this up a while ago, I believe they're referencing the same thing that we were talking about in this one. But again, either way, we can laugh at Brian Kilmeade for stammering and stuttering.
Let's bring in Fox News chief political anchor, special report guy and anchor and executive editor, where he calls that place home every day, 6 o'clock Eastern time, but he's a long way from Eastern time. Brett, your takeaway so far as it relates to the Iran war, because right now the headlines, even in the Arab news, are Iran is there.
Hold on, I had the paper here somewhere. I knew it. You see how J.D. Vance did this the other day, where he lost his section in his speech? Looks like it's contagious here. Kilmeade doing it again. Can't get the teleprompter right. Can't get his fucking papers in front of him correctly. Just an absolute hack piece of shit of a person to be in front of a camera. But again, I like to expose him every now and again. But I think Brett Baer is going to go on to talk about the rhetoric from Xi Jinping as well, and how that's not kind of been addressed by Donald Trump, and it was kind of, again, brushed past in a comment, in a question that he had on Air Force One.
Trump and Xi, Hormuz must stay open and Iran must not have a nuclear weapon. They agree on those two things.
Yeah, Brian, good morning, your time. I think that is the message from the White House, is that President Xi put out and agreed that Iran can't have a nuclear weapon, that the Strait of Hormuz has to be open.
Sounds like there's a but coming, guys. I'm not going to lie. Sounds like there's a but coming. Yes, that is the message put out there and the statement put out there by the White House. But let me just tell you what's going on the other side, much like we have to deal with in the war in Iran and every other aspect of this administration. Here's what they say. Here's what the other side says. And now somewhere in the middle has got to be somewhere, the truth lying there. But here's Brett Baer going on.
The message that came out from the White House. We don't have specifics yet of a readout of the specifics on the bilat. Hope to get more on that, the conversation.
Because there are no specifics. Again, there was no team sent ahead. There was no communications prior to this. There was no dignitaries and meetings and high-level fucking, things discussed prior to this so they could have a deal all set to go. And this was just, again, as they typically do. They already have all of this worked out, and it's just like this, show of pomp and circumstance and theater of the two leaders coming together with their special pens and signing the agreement, or, signing the proposal, or signing the alliance, the trade agreement, whatever it may be. That's not what happened here. This was just a trip for a trip's sake at this point. You know what I mean? This was just to go over and show China that we want to work with them even further, that they have more power on the world stage than they actually thought, and they could actually bully around Donald Trump much more than they expected, especially as it comes and pertains to not only Taiwan, but also their affiliation and relationships with our enemies, both Russia and Iran, going forward.
Chinese perspective, what they put out to their state-run agency was what Mark just referenced, and that is that Taiwan is the biggest issue for them, and that if handled properly, it would be great between the U.S. and China. If handled improperly, in their words, it could lead to conflict and clashes. That was seen as a kind of a veiled threat here, reading between the lines from President Xi. But everything on the pomp and circumstance suggests that this relationship is moving forward and they're having good meetings. We hope to get some
Again,
more.
so basically Brett Baer saying that if you read the statements from the president of China, then it sounds like there's a couple veiled threats in there. But again, if you're just judging it off of the dinners and the red carpet treatment, then it seems like everything's progressing just nicely. But again, we know that's not what geopolitical alliances and relationships are based off of, how nice the dinners are, right? At some point, you got to get down to brass tacks. At some point, there's going to have to be, goals and stated things that you want to accomplish and deadlines and very specific and detailed points that in which you're going to work together, whether it be in trade or militarily, whatever it may be. But that's not what we saw at all from this. Again, the most that we got was a couple fucking Twitter posts from some right-wing accounts basically saying, well, this is some of what she said. We can maybe take that as a promise, maybe take that as a possibility. But in fact, that's just all that is. It's just words on Twitter and promises, empty promises by the Chinese president as far as that's concerned. But even Brett Baer, Jack Posobiec, and others did go on and notice the fact that, not all of this was sunshine and rainbows. It may look good. It may look nice as far as the meetings and the dinners were concerned. But, if you look at the statements, if you look at the press releases, looks like these two sides are very far apart. And what the Chinese are talking about is not what the Americans are talking about. And what the Chinese want to see happen is not what the Americans are talking about they want to see happen, especially as it pertains to, like I said, Taiwan, the war in Iran, and China's assistance with Iran to continue their military efforts. But let's see if we can put this on the screen as well, because this is Mike Tiny Dick Johnson here. And much to the same effect that we played J.D. Vance on the show the other day, where J.D. Vance was basically stating one of the two statements from the right. Either, Donald Trump didn't mean to say that, that's not what he meant, or you're taking it out of context. Or again, the fan favorite is, no, sorry, I didn't hear that statement. I'm not aware of what he said in that regard. Well, this is another thing along those lines where we told you here on Blunt Politics. We read from, I believe, one of the accounts there associated with the Iranian leadership. I believe it was Dolphin Iran, if I'm not mistaken, that the United States, and it said, be warned, that the United States is going to attempt, as ridiculous and ludicrous and insane as it sounds, they were going to attempt to skirt, to get around congressional approval that they needed authorization for after so many days involved in a war. That, again, the power of Congress is afforded to them to give them the ability to then vote on the authorized military use of force or not, right? So they thought if they can just rename the conflicts, right? If they can just say, okay, that portion of the war has ended, we're going to now give it a new name, which resets the clock. That'll get us out of the ability, the consequences of not going to Congress and seeking their congressional approval. Right, that'll reset the sand timer. That'll kind of reset the clock. We'll get a whole new 60 days. So they said, beware of that. And we were like, well, that sounds absolutely ridiculous. Nobody's going to fall for that. That's exactly what happened. It was not long after that Pete Hegseth went in front of fucking Congress and said, Operation Epstein Fury is over. We're now on to Project Freedom. Now they went into, 24 hours later, they said Project Freedom was ended. Who knows what the next campaign is going to be called? But they really do believe, they honestly and truly believe that if they can just keep renaming this, right, if they just give it different names, that it's going to somehow get around the congressional authorization that they need to seek. That's literally what they think is going to happen. So much so that now the Speaker of the fucking House is saying the same bullshit. So here's Mike Tiny Johnson talking about how, Operation Epstein Fury has ended. That's a total separate thing. That's a total separate war. History will write about that war, and, that will be separate. Now we're into, another stage here that we have to give another name so that we can get another 60 days before we have to seek congressional approval. I shit you not. That's what they're trying to get past here. There's Mike Johnson being questioned about this at a press conference. Sorry about the black screen, but
And Iran war powers resolution, but there were 2 new Republicans that voted for it. Are you confident that you can keep leading back these types of issues?
Yes, look, Iran is we're not having kinetic activity right now, as we would say. The president has declared Operation Epic Fury to have concluded, And now we're working on the next project, which is getting the Strait of Hormuz open. We don't
have a name for that project yet, but if we do, and if and when we come up with a name for that project, we'll give it to you guys, and then you guys can report that as being like day one of Operation fucking Mike Tiny Dick Johnson here, right? Operation My Phone's Connected with My Son's Porn Account. I don't know what they want to call this next operation, but they're going to give it some sort of fucking stupid name that has to do with hammers or big dicks or something like that. You can tell, right? That's, you know, these people. Pete Hegseth has anything involved, it's going to be like big rum, big whiskey swinging dicks, Operation Whiskey Swinging Dicks or something like that, if you leave it up to Hegseth. But this is ridiculous. This is asinine. The president said that Operation Epstein Fury is over. So then we have to believe that. So then that's like the law of the land. We just, okay, that's a total separate situation. That's a total separate war. We can't go for congressional authorization because it's got a different name, even though it's the same region, same war, same activity, same stated goals, same everything as far as that's concerned. Well, again, the Speaker of the House here now trying to get you to believe that, no, that doesn't matter. It's what it's named, not so much how many days we're engaged in the war.
Don't expect that to be a warfare activity, so to speak. So we've got to allow the administration time to negotiate these things.
And that was him actually saying that he doesn't expect it to be a warfare. Let me see. I'll see how he stated that.
We're working on the next project, which is getting the Strait of Hormuz open. We don't expect that to be a warfare activity, so to speak. So we
don't believe that to be a warfare activity, so to speak. Okay, so again, flying in the face of Donald Trump saying that he was going to totally eradicate and eliminate the civilization of Iran. Also, now kind of along the same lines of Donald Trump saying that it's not really a big deal that we go in with the enriched uranium, right? So it's like they got all sides covered. They covered all bases. It doesn't matter what happens now. They can say that they said that was going to happen. Right? It's just like that's what they do in every single instance. Donald Trump will do that a lot of the time. You know, he'll take all sides of the argument so that at some point, eventually, when the truth comes out, he can be like, well, I said that at some point. I know I said 43 other things, all 43 other lines of bullshit and propaganda. But at some point, I did mention that, I believe. You know what I mean? It's like, no, you don't get to give yourself credit for going to get a pail of water to put on the house that you set on fire to begin with, right? That's just not how it works. All right, let's dive on here because I'm rapidly running out of time as well. I just want to go through this, give you guys a couple updates about what was taking place over the last 24, 48 hours in Ukraine. We covered the Russian strikes, the heavy Russian strikes over the last couple nights, and unfortunately, it looks like the death toll, as we said it would, has continued to rise. This is from Kate from Kharkiv saying that classmates and friends lay flowers at a makeshift memorial outside the collapsed apartment building, which we showed on the show. A Russian attack killed 24 people here, including 3 children. So again, I'm sure that death toll isn't even finalized either. Here's another one. Rescue operation to cite that the Russian drone strike residential building has been completed. Attack killed 24 people, including 3 children, 24 bastards, bloody terrorists, and obviously here the pictures of what was taking place there. But there was some more info coming out as far as this is concerned as well. But some good news that I was going to report. I said on the show the other day that I hadn't seen any evidence of the exchange, the prisoner exchange, the prisoner swap that had been promised by both sides, the 1,000 for 1,000. That was agreed upon during the ceasefire for the Victory Day parade in Moscow. But I am happy to now be able to show you the first footage, the first videos coming out of at least, I think it's 250, if I'm not mistaken, the first kind of, I don't want to say batch, that's probably a bad word to use, but the first group of POWs that were released in this 1,000 for 1,000 prisoner exchange swap have now come home and have made their way onto Ukrainian soil, as you can see here, posted by the Defense of Ukraine. Glory to the heroes, Heroyam Slava. As always, I just want to see if we could cover this, a good moment here where some of these soldiers have been in captivity, in Russian captivity, since the first days of this war, right? Since the very first, the very first actions, the very first engagements of this war. Also, what I want you to recognize is the difference in treatment, the difference in health, the difference in status, if you will, from the Ukrainians coming back from Russia. And obviously in this video, it will also show you the Russians, obviously released by the Ukrainian side, going back to Russia. And they look like they're in much better health, Looked like they were much, better cared after, better cared for, well fed. They seem to have, their a lot more of their clothes and things together on them. You can kind of see the difference, and it kind of shows you the different treatment that these POWs, these prisoners of war, are getting in the respective camps that they've been captured in. So I'm sure the Ukrainians are a lot more humane in their treatment than the Russians are with their capture and, holding of the Ukrainian prisoners of war. But here it is, posted by Defense of Ukraine, about a minute long here. Glory to the heroes returning to Ukraine after being in captivity for quite a long time here.
I freedom!
Неймовірно.
Ма! Ти собі так не представляєш, ма! В тебе завтра день народження. Бач, зробив той подарок на день народження, наша держава зробила. Слава Україні! Слава нації! Україна!
So obviously good to see there. I'm fighting here. I think there was actually, God damn it, I think there was actually another report on this as well, a little bit more in depth. This was, I think, just a 2-minute update, a 2-minute recap, I think, of the same, the same thing that we just saw here, but maybe a little bit different information, a little bit more insight. But again, good to see. I will continue to show these as much as we possibly can of these soldiers making their way back home to their families and their friends and their homeland. So here's just another one. This is by France 24. Russia and Ukraine swapped 205, so not 250, 205 prisoners of war each.
These newly freed Ukrainian prisoners of war are overcome with emotion as they return home after years in Russian prisons. Many of the 205 released were captured at the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion in 2022.
I'm glad to hear you. I'm home. I'm in Ukraine, Mum.
Similar images on the Russian side, where 205 prisoners of war were also sent back home.
But again, it just looks to me like, they've been well cared for. You know what I mean? A lot more than the Ukrainians have been cared for on the Russian side. They seem to be more well-fed, in better health, than any of the Ukrainians being released on the other side. But, you can see here that obviously both sides now, living up to their end of the bargain, so to speak, at least in this first group of prisoner exchanges of the 1,000 for 1,000. That was, kind of agreed upon, like I said, for the ceasefire for the 9th, 10th, and 11th, I believe it was, for the Victory Day parade in Russia. But, this goes on.
It's the first step in the mutual swap of 1,000 prisoners, proposed by U.S. President Donald Trump last week as he announced a 3-day ceasefire. But it seems to be the only point on which Kyiv and Moscow are cooperating. Scenes of grief echoed through the Ukrainian capital early Friday, as the city observed a day of mourning. Many paid their respects at this apartment building, where a Russian missile strike killed over 20 people, including several children. First responders dug through the rubble for 28 hours, rescuing dozens of survivors and recovering bodies.
It's just so tragic. Both the children and the adults who are simply resting, dreaming, going about their lives, working. And they wiped them out in an instant. They just wiped out people.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky harshly condemned the attack on civilians.
A Russia like this can never be normalized. A Russia that deliberately destroys lives and hopes to remain unpunished. Pressure is needed.
Following the short-lived ceasefire, Ukraine has also resumed fighting with intensity.
And again, that's some footage there coming from Ryazan, in Russia there. And I do have an update here from the professor as for the retaliations, the responses by the Ukrainians. And again, I don't know if this is in direct response, but again, just part of their ongoing initiative, their ongoing kinetic sanctions that they've been engaged in for quite some time. But just before I get you guys out of here, I just want to give you some updates on Ukraine sending a message to Russia after Russia's massive strike inside of Ukraine. And again, that apartment block that we're talking about, the 24 dead at least in that, is just one of the many places that were attacked, one of the many strikes inside of Ukraine over the last, like I said, 24 to 48 hours that have been absolutely devastating and mainly focused on the Ukrainian civilian infrastructure, Ukrainian civilian, apartment blocks, whether it's energy infrastructure or just the civilian infrastructure itself. Again, no military targets that were hit. Still to this time, I cannot show you a video that has come out of a justifiable military target that was struck by Russia whatsoever. It's all civilian shit. So again, here's the professor just giving us a quick update, quick rundown on some of the strikes going from Ukraine into Russia, again, in response to their massive attacks.
It's Friday, May 15th, 2026. After the most brutal 24 hours that Russia has inflicted on Ukraine with overnight and during the day drone attacks, payback has begun. So let's look at what's going on. Approximate flight routes of our UAVs. Red arrow is the direction of movement of strike UAVs. Blue arrow, direction of movement of jet-powered UAVs. According to Russian sources, around 250 conventional.
What he's showing here is a depiction on the map, in case you're not, up to speed with it, is just basically, like he said, the direction where the drones were being launched from, what kind of drones that they were, like he just said, in color-coordinated red arrows, direction of movements from strikes on UAVs, and then the blue arrows is the directions of movements from the jet-powered UAVs, showing here that, according to Russian sources, around 250 conventional and 5 jet-powered drones were reportedly launched. However, these figures and the indicated routes are highly approximate. We are detecting new launches, expecting 320 plus drones over the swamps. So again, here showing you and depicting kind of in which direction the drones were flying and what type of drones they were.
Powered UAVs. According to Russian sources, around 250 conventional and 5 jet-powered drones were reportedly launched. And you can see the pattern of where they were going into Russia, down into Crimea, and forward. So let's see, almost the entire European part of the swamps is under alert. A lot is flying from all directions. All information is based on.
I'm not familiar, so to speak, with the drone bomber. He seems to enjoy and kind of attest to his reporting here, but what he's actually calling the European swamps here, I'm assuming, is just Russia. I could be mistaken as far as that's concerned, but it says almost the entire European part of the swamp is under alerts. And again, as we're talking about drone strikes and missile launches going into Russia, I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together as for what that means.
Data from Russian sources and monitoring resources. This is Drone Bomber. Drone Bomber does excellent work. Okay, primary target.
Look at the size of fucking that. Will you please tell me that doesn't look like another movie? I mean, some of the sizes of these strikes and the damage and the infernos that come after these strikes have just been fucking insane to watch. And again, as terrible and as hard as it is to see, obviously the impacts to the environment that are going to be had by this, it's obviously nothing that has been perpetrated and put into existence, per the Ukrainians' wishes. Right? They have tried to, in every way, shape, or form, stop this. Have this not happen, get the Russians out of their territory, tell Russia to go the fuck back into Russia, or else this shit is the type of shit that they will have to go through. They will have to strike in order to mitigate, their ability to conduct this war. So, it's a double-edged sword, obviously, but, war is war. This goes on to talk about the recent strikes here at Russia's Ryazan oil refinery is heavily ablaze this morning after numerous Ukrainian attack drones hit the facility overnight. Slava Ukraine, Heroyam Slava, you motherfuckers. Love it when I see this shit. And again, look at the intensity of the blaze. Look at the size of the blaze. You're looking at from a pretty substantial distance from this facility, and it looks like just a World War II like scene of what reminds me of the Nazis bombing of Warsaw. Right, that's kind of the shots that remind me of there, or a Stalingrad type of view.
Russia's Ryazan oil refinery is heavily ablaze this morning after numerous Ukrainian attack drones hit the facility overnight. That looks pretty heavily ablaze to me. Here's an official version of this. Razan oil refinery, ships, ammunition depots, enemy radar stations have been hit. I translated it just to make sure I was looking at the right thing. Razan refinery is what you're looking at in this picture. The Razan
And this
oil
goes on to talk about here, just for the sake of time. It says Ryazan oil refinery, one of Russia's largest, with 17 million tons. 17 million tons of annual processing capacity is engulfed in flames after a massive overnight drone attack. Oil rain was reported, and air defense or EW activity reportedly hit a high rise, causing dead and wounded in Russia. So not sure if that was a targeted strike on that, per some, Russian official living there or FSB members stationed there, whatever it may be. Not sure as to what that was. But again, massive strikes here launched upon the Ryazan oil refinery, which looks to have some substantial fires going on here.
Refinery, one of Russia's largest, with 17 million tons of annual processing capacity.
And I say that for the apartment complex, the one that we saw hit the apartment complex, as it's reported here, causing dead and wounded. The reason I say that is because the last time that we saw one of these complexes struck, one of these apartments struck, it was basically with the exact intel of the FSB members, the Russian intelligence members that were utilizing those either hotel rooms or apartment rooms that they were in. So they're going after very specific people, very specific fucking rooms in that. And it wasn't just like a general attack on civilian infrastructure. It was, justifiable military targets in where they were. They utilized the intel that they had, and they struck those rooms to the best of their ability. So again, that's why I say I'm not sure. I haven't heard the intel yet or information or reporting as to why that complex may have been hit. But again, to see that a refinery with the capacity of 17 million tons, per year was hit is again going to do some substantial damage, depending on how long the fire burns. Of course,
engulfed in flames after a massive overnight drone attack. Additional footage of Razan's oil refinery. So let's play that for you, just so you can see this. This is Supernova Plus, showing look at that smoke cloud. They're suffering catastrophic fire this morning after overnight Ukrainian drone strike, and more will keep coming.
I mean, it just reminds me every time I see that of the movie 300, where again the amount of arrows that was put up by the enemy was so great that it blotted out the sun. Right? They were now fighting under shade because of the amount of arrows. That's just what I keep thinking every time I see that, like whether it's Tuops or Priovsk or Ust-Luga, Ryazan here, or any of the other oil refineries or installations that have been hit. And we've seen substantial fires like that. That's just all I can think of. The sun is being blotted out by the Ukrainians, and now the Russians are living in the fucking dark. And as you can see, not only living in the dark, but under fucking black rain. Right? We've seen this down in Crimea as well. The fucking Russians bitching and complaining that they're dealing with the mess now because they thought it was, just easy for them to just roll into somebody else's territory and take it over. Well, now they're feeling the pain. They're feeling the fucking hurt of that. And we're feeling no empathy or compassion whatsoever. It goes on to say here, oil product rain is reported in Ryazan after a major Ukrainian drone attack hit the city's refinery. Similar situation occurred in Tuops earlier after Ukraine attacked a local oil terminal. So again, you can see here the residue on the car, much like we saw in a lot of the establishments and in the backyards and on the roofs of the houses in and around Tuops.
There's also oil product rain reported in Ryazan after a major Ukrainian drone attack hits the city's refinery. So rain's not supposed to look like that, not even in New Jersey. Okay, busy day for busy day for the oil refinery in Ryazan, Russia. Okay, but it's not just the hit on the refinery. The Russians, they chimed in too. No mercy from Russian air defenses toward the apartment blocks of Russia's Ryazan. Yeah, Russia's air defense was doing this, hitting the buildings in the process.
So they hit their own buildings with their own air defenses. Is that what I'm led to believe here? I mean, again, I wouldn't put it past the Russians. It's not like we haven't seen worse mistakes, dumber mistakes, and stupider things done by them. But that's funny. Russian air defenses hit a residential building in Ryazan while repelling a Ukrainian attack, according to Russian media. 3 people were killed. And again, maybe this is possibly the reporting that's coming out of, and I think it's trying to be utilized by Russia as far as propaganda and the Ukrainians actually being involved in this strike. So it's kind of being, it's made a little bit more clear now. If it in fact was the Russian air defenses that did hit their own buildings, they would be likely to come out and say that it was from a Ukrainian drone attack and not from their own missiles and air defenses. So you can see where that reporting is coming from now. So like I said, I didn't see anything before, but this is kind of making it a little bit more likely that the Russian propaganda machine is out there working, trying to make it seem like the Ukrainians were again targeting civilian infrastructure, where we know they've been very good at not doing that when in fact it is avoidable.
As Russia's air defense hit residential buildings in Ryazan while repelling a Ukrainian attack, according to Russian media. 3 people were killed in that process. And now that's not all. There was plenty of other things that were hit last night.
And again, we'll end on this one. I'll let you guys go after this one. I'll read through this real quick. This is from Jay in Kyiv. Jay in Kyiv states, another night of Ukraine's unmanned systems forces continuing to dismantle the Russian war machine across several regions, not only deep in Russia itself, but occupied Ukraine as well. Overnight successes include, and it goes through that, the BE-200 aircraft, Morskoy airfield, Russia, 1 SBS operational center, KA-27 helicopter with a torpedo, Morskoy airfield, Russia, 1 SBS operational center, the Tor M2 air defense system, Goncharovo airfield in Luhansk region, 427th SBS Rarog Brigade, the Pantsir S-1 air defense system in the Kuturok airfield, Crimean Autonomous Republic, 1 SBS operational center, dry cargo ship with BK, Berdyansk, Zaporizhia region, 1 SBS operational center, Russian training center and command post at the Radgorodga airfield in Luhansk, 414th SBS Magyars Birds Brigade, 20th SBS K2 Brigade. So these are basically overnight strikes and who is responsible for those strikes. As you can see here, per the 414th Magyars Birds Brigade, 20th SBS K2 Brigade, and again, the different either aircraft or installations that were taken out by them. But like I said, want to make sure that we're doing accurate and well-rounded coverage of this, not only what's been going, from Ukraine into Russia, but obviously the devastating effects of what continues to be lobbed from, not only Russia, but also occupied territory inside of Ukraine into the territories of Ukraine. We'll be here to cover it. So much appreciated to the professor for the updates. Thank you guys for joining me once again. Another great show. My apologies for not including any Lego videos today, but I'm sure we'll have multiple to catch up on. Tiff is always keeping me up to date on the Lego videos, as it were. So I'm sure I'll have a ton being sent to me for tomorrow, for Sunday's show. We can get into it. But what do you say we start thanking some individuals here for their fabulous help and support for this channel. We're now up to 19,159 subscribers. Okay, let's go. Let's go. Really close to 20,000 subscribers. It would be really great if you could help us get there. Share the show out. Tell friends. Tell family. Again, just let people on your social media accounts know that there's a place here that you should be listening to, a guy here that you should be listening to, a community here that you should be a part of. And again, thank you guys for everybody that's helped build this community up to what it is now from what it started was. I mean, we started this with absolutely nothing. Literally a cell phone and a light and a couple people watching. So thank you for getting me to this point. It is, it's an achievement. It really is an achievement to build a YouTube platform, a YouTube channel to this point. Even I know I'm small potatoes, I'm small fries. Again, I'm not getting ahead of my skis or anything. Not too big for my britches, but it is again very tough and difficult to build a YouTube community. Who's around? Who's anybody in here? Fucking hell. What is happening around these parts? The fucking deep state. Deep state wins again, people. The deep state wins again. I appreciate you sticking with me, though. I'm sorry I didn't get to thank everybody like I was supposed to. You can't talk about Russia. You can't talk about Russia, or the deep state will come and attack you. You will attack your live stream, will attack your podcast. Like you guys said, the derp state taking me down for being anti-fascist. They don't like anti-fascists being on here. Now we're having trouble Jesus Christ. We're having trouble to Facebook. We're having trouble everywhere. All right. I'm just going to say thank you. Get you guys out of here. I'll go through the list of everybody Sunday that I missed today to be able to thank. But thank you guys so much. Sorry to the mods again for the disruption here. Very much appreciate you. Thank you, Olga. Thank you, Yakov. Thank you, Jim, Roxanne, Tamara, Laurie. Thank you, Tiff. What's going on, Dad? Thank you for keeping people informed. Thank you. What's going on, Vixen? What's going on, guys? Thank you. I'll just fly through them real quick. Shifty Lincoln. Thank you so much, Jeff, Colleen, Woke Antifa. Thank you so much to Bry Guy again. Thank you, No Money G. Thank you so much to Vinny and JD. Like I said, sorry, I apologize. I didn't get to go through the list like I typically do, but internet problems being what they may. I appreciate you guys. I'm just glad I could get back on and sign off at least. So you guys weren't sticking around here. We needed mods all day, but I love you. I appreciate you. I'll see you Sunday. Thank you to the mods. Thank you to everybody sticking around. And yeah, sorry about the internet connectivity there. I'm telling you, it was the Russians. Putin doesn't want me talking about that. Benny Johnson doesn't want me talking about that. So thank you guys. I appreciate all your support, your love. Head over to bostonbrian.com. Check out the merch. Make sure if you have the financial capability to do so, kick in a buck or two in the Venmo. Obviously, you got the YouTube memberships and patreon.com you can check out as well. So sorry about that. Much appreciated, guys, and I'll see you Sunday. Enjoy your day off from me, at least. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks, guys. At least you can hear the exit. At least you can hear the exit video.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
We're inviting Americans from all across the country to come.
Here's a thought. Grow a sack, fill it with some balls.
The new form of vicious violation to our country.
Somebody said, is that a Trump statement or is that real?
Water coming here is dead.
What in the hell was that all about?
Yesterday's a hard word for me.
Fucking Nazis. The big